With that being said, I'd like to call the June 13th, 2023 board meeting discussion and action to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Adams.
Here.
Dr. Anderson. Here. Mr. Caligiuri.
Here.
Ms. Chudowitz.
Here.
Mr. Devine.
Here.
Mr. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Sokolsky.
Here.
Mrs. Stepnick.
Here.
Ms. Wetmore.
Present.
Thank you. The board met in executive session on June 13th, 2023 to discuss matters of litigation, safety, personnel, and real estate. Ms. Macro, can you also add that we met on June 11th to the agenda? Recommend approval of the following minutes as listed below.
On behalf of the, oh, go ahead. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We have some student recognitions. I will turn it over to Dr. Walsh, or actually Dr. Hibner.
Good evening. On behalf of Mr. Miller, who couldn't be here with us this evening, I'm going to speak some words that he has shared. I wish that I could be here to say these words in person. Unfortunately, I was called out of town on business this week. I apologize to you for only being able to send this note. The program that the robotics team participates in culminates in a BattleBot tournament, but the educational value of the program far outweighs the accolades won there. Each member writes a resume each year, updating it as their skills and experience increase. They prepare an engineering documentation package that easily exceeds 150 pages in length. Contained in those documents are project plans, wiring schematics, engineering assembly drawings, a master bill of materials, and a safety booklet that documents the safe handling and use of every tool and material that they used over the course of the year, and an incident response plan in the event of injury. These are real world skills and a more comprehensive package than they will encounter until they are employed. The work is not all paperwork. The students learn how to operate vertical mills, CNC machines, bandsaws, drill presses, hand tools, soldering irons, circuit testers, etc. It's a vital resource that has launched its alumni to careers in engineering and the trades, not to mention second overall this season in the BattleBots. It was such an important element to the high school careers of these alumni that they have gone above and beyond to ensure it continues here. Don and Joe Dorfler directed their winnings at NHRL this past year to ensure that Plum Robotics has the financial wherewithal to continue. They not only made this generous donation, but have come to mentor and work on challenging and dangerous elements of the bots like battery construction on their own time. Zach Knight coached and mentored the team. He prepared them for competition, helped them to learn to think through engineering and manufacturing dilemmas, and donated many spare parts and widgets. Michael Shore helped make everything come together. Our team's CAD skills are not yet capable of forming an entire assembly, so Michael made sure that everything fit together before we started cutting metal, and even allowed us to base our designs on his own. Plum should celebrate alumni like this. The team itself far exceeded anyone's expectations. The club consisted of 3 seniors, 1 junior, 1 sophomore, and 11 freshmen. This was not an experience-laden team, but they came together and worked together in amazing fashion. At the preliminary competition, both bots were literally ripped apart. You would have been amazed to see the ingenuity, determination, and work rate that these students displayed as they found a way to repair and return their bots to the arena, passing through the safety inspection too, within as short as 25 minutes. Unfortunately, preliminaries was the end for both of these bots as their frames ended up bent beyond repair. Within 8 weeks, both teams made design modifications and fabricated entirely new bots for finals. Truly an amazing feat. Team Orion while having a great design, ran into some bad luck. In both of their losses, they lost their drivetrain because the hit they supplied to their opponent was so violent, it caused a part to fail in their own bot. They will fix that design flaw for next year. This was a team of 1 sophomore and all freshmen, and they finished in the round of 16. Out of a field of 63, this is a huge accomplishment. Team Ram ran the table and finished 7-0, taking home first place. Their documentation package was scored at number 7, giving them a combined top score and winning them the grand championship. They earned $1,000 for their first place finish and $1,500 for the grand championship. Plum, despite its history as a top program, had not won this since 2017. Their bot was the culmination of thousands of hours of refinement over the last few years, and it made it through the finals without a scratch. Truly, it was in a class of its own. We win as a team and lose as a team, but Mr. Miller would like to call out Senior Alex Miller, club president and 4-year member, Senior Emma Kilmeyer, 2-year member, and freshman Kian Estott, members of RAM, who were able to participate in finals, and they performed like the champions they are. He's very humbled and grateful to these students for the way they conducted themselves this year, and can say that this club should make Plum very proud. That's the end of Mr. Miller's words. Now I'm going to call these students up and ask them to join me at the podium where they can be recognized for their accomplishments. I'll first call up Alex Miller. Because I know you had the trophy, so I'm going out of order here. Who has the other one? Okay. Samantha Field. Ian Bartolomeo. Davin Bauer. Kendall Bigley. Anya Collins. Kian Estott. Samantha Fields. Emma Kilmeyer. Ava Miller. Ryan Maritish. Cody Page. Aaron Smith. And Dhruv Takar. And I believe the board would like our senior to share
Next steps.
next steps.
Like future?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm attending Temple University in Philly next fall. I'm going to be studying computer science, hopefully with a minor in mechanical or environmental engineering. Don't know much what the end goal is yet, but I want to make sure whatever I'm doing is going to benefit the environment around me. And yeah, hopefully have fun.
That's awesome.
You want to get them together for a picture?
Yeah.
Whichever way you want. Whatever way you want. Yeah.
They can come right in the middle here.
Yeah, why don't you come up here in the middle,
Yeah.
guys?
Right in the middle. It'll be
Yeah, why
perfect.
don't. All right. Let's get our turkeys in the middle. Yeah, if parents want to take photos, come on in.
Dr. Walsh, while they're taking a photo, do you know if there's any schools that have their own BattleBot ring?
I think my previous district did. It was a plexiglass. It was
Yeah.
nothing but-
That'd be cool if that's something. I know that that team was looking for a place to practice.
It was portable.
That would be awesome if that's something that we could look into.
Those trophies are getting heavy, huh?
They've got grants.
That's pretty cool. All right. Good job, guys.
Which one of you were talking about the arena? So I was just talking to the principal Himmler about that, and we have a significant lead about doing that.
Awesome.
Bringing it in the school, so
Awesome.
I think it's a great opportunity that came about last week. So
I'll have my support.
I'm excited for that. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, let's do
Thank
it.
you again for everything.
No problem. Thank you guys for
Appreciate
being so supportive.
Yeah. Yeah. It was cool to see somebody on TV I knew.
Thank you all. At this time, we're going to open up for citizens' comments. Before we do that, just want to make sure everybody's aware, tonight's meeting is truly combined with discussion and action. Normally, when we have both on one night, we do a discussion meeting, end the meeting, and restart the meeting for the action portion of it. So if there's anything on the agenda you'd like to speak about tonight, Ms. Macro will go through the rules for the comments, but the entire agenda is open for now. We're not going to have a second meeting.
You want to let the students lead?
All right, so if anybody would like to make a comment to the board on items that are currently on the agenda, we ask that you step up one at a time, state your name, your residency within Plum, and then you will have 5 minutes to speak. It's just a reminder that this is a time to provide your comments and suggestions to the board rather than a Q&A session with the board. Please direct your comments to our presiding board members. I will give you a 30-second warning when your time is coming to an end. I'll also project it on the screen so you can keep track of your own time as well. Whenever you're finished speaking, I'll just have you step over to the clipboard at the end of the table and write your name down so that I spell it correctly in the minutes. At this time, anyone wanting to make comments, please step up one at a time.
My name is Corey Sokolsky.
I'm sorry, Corey. I'm sorry, just 1 second. Anyone that was here for recognitions, we want to thank you for joining us tonight, and you're certainly welcome to leave at this time. If you and your families would like to exit, that is, you're certainly welcome to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Corey Sokolsky, 230 Ligonier Lane. I came tonight to discuss the appointment of Dr. Walsh as the interim superintendent. I want to start by saying I appreciate the action of the board to have the position temporarily filled to allow operations this summer to continue and ensure the preparations for the 23-24 school year will continue to allow for a normal start. With that being said, I think it's imperative that this position is posted and a full process is carried out to ensure that the best candidate and most appropriate for the job and our community is selected for the future. In light of Dr. Hyland's resignation, the community is clearly speaking out against the decisions of the board and how they are making decisions that affect our students as well as our overall community. Dr. Walsh may very well be the strongest candidate out there for this position, and I, as well as many other community members, hope that is the case. But if it is the case, then when the process is open and the hiring committee is involved, this will be able to determine that. I'm questioning why we would not move to that process, but I'm not surprised since in 2020, when many of the current board members granted extensions to Dr. Hyland and Dr. Walsh on the premise, as Mr. Devine put it, that these guys are tops at their positions, I find it deeply concerning that in a short 2-year span with the district, not to mention from March 20 of 20 through the comment being made in September, which is when this remark was made, we were in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic and schools were shut down. So in 2 years, without holding any other central administrative positions to my knowledge, such as Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Director of Pupil Services, Innovation and Technology, or any other positions, as I stated, were willing to make the public statement that they are tops at their position. I question the level of ignorance and arrogance that is made when making that remark. Also, if we didn't offer them the extension, would they have stayed through their current contract at that time? It questions long-term commitment even 2 years ago. There are a lot of qualified and respected candidates out there that would seize the opportunity not only to come to Plum, but invest in Plum's community, and have shown their commitment to do that in the positions they currently hold. I find it concerning that we dare talk about the dark days of Plum and how Dr. Highland got us out of them when we are currently seeing and discussing how the community, not entirely but in large parts, feels completely misled and lied to, and are at a point where we are at our worst. I do not thank Dr. Highland for bringing pride back to Plum Borough. The outside view of Plum when I left in 2017 was that it was a great district and a strong community, and that's the exact reason I moved back to it in 2022 after living in Pine Richland for 5 years. Little did I know within the first month of the district I grew up in, played in a classroom as a child in, graduated from, watched my father serve 25 plus years as an educator, umpire, coach, and now school board member, that the district would be unrecognizable. Lacking integrity to do the right thing, riddled with lack of professionalism and respect for each other, as well as those who voice their concerns and want a better place for the students and community. Ultimately ignoring the people who may not have voted you in but have the right to speak and be heard. With slogans and taglines like keeping politics out of our schools, join us at the gathering nonpartisan, vote Democrat, vote Republican. How about we vote for our students and our community and alumni? How about we vote for the people that are here and voicing their opinions, or voting towards that? I and other members of the community do not care what party you hold or if you're in the minority or the majority. Follow our district values that you post all over the district, the buildings, and the new signs that we put up all over the place. If we can use the word values in this forum, show the integrity to the process, show the commitment to your duties to represent the community as a whole, not just the people who voted you in. Show the care you claim to have by working together regardless of what party you represent, for our students and our community members. Open the process to all candidates. Create a hiring committee that is representative of the members who will be here at the end of the year and beyond that, and give the community and student body that continues to make Plum proud what they deserve. It is easy to conform and go with the majority for fear of repercussions or maybe losing some votes. It's hard to speak up and vote for what you know is the right thing. I ask all of you again to do the right thing for Plum. Thank you.
If there's anybody else that would like to step up for comment?
Good evening, I'm Jimmy Reese, I'm from 144 Valley Fields Drive. As most of you know, we residents were informed this past weekend that the superintendent is leaving at the end of the month. As that can be a whole other discussion, that is not the reason I am here to speak. As far as a departure, it was brought to my attention that there will be a new athletic director voted on tonight. I think it is absolutely irresponsible to make a hire with the recent news that we just received over the weekend. We have failed as far as having an AD stay here, and it seems we are rushing this process again based off of a recommendation from someone who is unfortunately 0 for 2 in the last 2 hires. The board has a chance to pick up a much needed win by tabling this vote until you have a chance to research and, in my opinion, reopen the position to the public. I ask you this because of my understanding there was candidates who did not apply for because of the current superintendent. I know for a fact there were board members who got little or basically no information on this candidate that we have up for vote tonight. This tabling is not anything personal against this candidate. This is more of a issue with rushing. Yet again, I'm just going to go off of this and speak freely. You guys, I know most of you, you're good people. Let's not rush this again. You can table this. You can all get more information about the candidate or candidates, reopen it. What's the rush? I understand everybody say about fall sports and stuff like that. There's a secretary, I'm very involved in athletics. She handles most of the schedule and stuff like that. You're not going to get, we're not going to be stuck, if we table this for a couple weeks. I feel that when the last 2 times, which, by the way, I like Josh and I like Brian, so it had nothing to do with them. Both good people, right? It's just, unfortunately, it wasn't a fit for them. So you would think that we would learn from our mistakes and then come around and say, hey, let's just change this process up a little bit. My understanding there's a committee, but it's a committee of 1. You guys are voted on to help run the school district. There's not one or two people that run the school district, it's a group of people. I think that, I understand from one of the board members who's helped me out tremendously when asking questions, is you guys are not going to be in session again until August, and I understand, but you could also come back if need be for something like this. I think that we should do that. I look around here and I look at the people. I know, like I said, I've come up here before. I know some of you, you're good people. You're not bad people. I'm not here to go over Democrat, Republican. I don't care about that. I care about the kids. And we messed up. We have a superintendent who's moving on. We could sit there, we can yell and scream about that, but it's not going to change the fact that the other month is gone. So be it. Good luck. See ya. But we are the ones that have to pick up all the pieces. And do we really want to be having this conversation again in a year about hiring another athletic director 3 in the last 4 years? Or do you think it, the old saying, measure twice, cut once, that we maybe take a little time and you guys have a couple meetings and just kind of discuss the candidates, reopen it, and make sure that we're getting the best quality person who, he or she, is going to come in and invest in the community. The problem that we have is the people who are above you in administration, they are not a lot of them aren't invested in the community. They're about the jobs and whether they're going to leave or they're going to stay. They're not invested in the community. And once again, it's not a personal attack on them. There might be 100 reasons why, but we can get back to where we're invested in the community by you guys doing this. And it's a big win for the school board. And you guys need this win. Let's just call it what it is. You need this win. And there's going to be an election in the fall. And for some of you, it may depend on whether you get voted in or not. With a vote like this, if you vote no and we table this, that might get you in the fall. You going on and just pushing this through, unfortunately, that might be somebody that listens to this tonight, reads it on Facebook, or whatever, how you guys voted, to say, you know what, this guy or this lady don't care, they're not invested in the community. So that's all I ask you guys. Like I said, I look around here, I'm fortunate enough to know some of you guys, you're good people. So I just ask you just to do the right thing, that's all. Thank you.
My name is Tom Feeney, 9002 Oak Street. I guess, first, ditto, everything you said, I agree with it. It's not why I'm up here. Highland left, didn't even have the courage to show up. I'm glad he's gone. I think he was a horrible superintendent. Reason I came here tonight was, 2 words get thrown around a lot. One of them recently this weekend and one of them all the time. Transparency, optics. You said it yesterday. You get the optics. Everybody says transparency. About a month ago, Amy posted about Highland leaving. She received a letter, received something, I don't know, smoke signal from somewhere. Somebody told her a month ago. A couple of you guys denied it. Highland himself denied it. He was asked point blank if he was leaving. He said no. This weekend, found out all of that was wrong. He was in fact leaving. He didn't decide Friday to leave. He didn't decide Sunday to leave. He decided a while ago. Whether you knew it or not, different story. The optics of it looked like somebody knew about it because the statement that was released yesterday or on Sunday, that was not typed up Sunday. That was prepared. It looked like it was prepared. It's the optics of it. In the essence of transparency, have you guys ever heard the phrase of let's get out in front of something? Did anybody dig into it? Did anybody contact North Allegheny? Did anybody, or did you just take Highland's word? All of us in this town got smacked in the face with this weekend, and most of us are like, we knew it was coming. You guys gotta start looking at that stuff. The optics matter. And like he said, some of you guys are up for re-election. There's a couple of you I would like to vote for. But this hurts. This is not a good look. I could go on, but I'm not.
Katie Thompson, 216 Ligonier Lane. Didn't know I had you as a neighbor, so you're walking around the neighborhood. So, I'm not a public speaker by any means. I have an entire thing written up right now. And let me start off by saying it says, I came here tonight to speak not only to voice my absolute disgust in decisions this board has been making this past couple of years, as somebody who's only been here for 3, but also to look at the ex-superintendent and just let him know how disgusting we should feel as a community that we have been not only lied to, but everything's been put under a rug. We are not, nobody tells us anything. We have to get letters in our mailboxes from anonymous sources to figure out what's going on. I'm 35 years old. I've only been here 35 years. You have a whole entire group behind me with many years in this district. I come from Hampton Township. Very good school district. Never had issues like this. We had school board issues. Nothing like this. But I don't want to steer away for the real reason I'm here, because after so many years of saying I was going to come and hoping that I could put my trust in people that I put my children under, we'll go back to this. The fact that I had to find out through WTAE that we hired a superintendent who had no history of any knowledge of being a superintendent. He was a vice principal. And then to find out he had involved in a lawsuit in North Allegheny because he didn't protect a child, a little girl, from being sexually assaulted. I know he's not here, and I can't say it to him, and I'm sorry that I have to speak to all of you, because out of respect, I know most of you. Outside of this situation, I adore you guys. I've had problems with Amy, but I still see her point of view on most of the things. We see differently, but we want the best for these kids. I am appalled at the fact that we even put into consideration hiring somebody who was going through a lawsuit or being investigated for a lawsuit, bringing him into a school district who already had issues with issues with the children in the high school and people around them. And you're going to bring in an educator who does not have the backbone to defend a little girl he took an oath to protect. That's disgusting. It's just basically how it is. And then we're going to sit here. I'm going to wrap up because I know my speech was way longer and I had a lot to say. If anybody thinks that it is okay to allow this man who left us to went to North Allegheny, he's home. That's what he said on our news. He was happy to be home. He used us as a stepping stone. He found his home. He knew where he was going. He knew from day one. He just knew that he could milk us for what he could get and leave. And who suffers? Taxpayers and the kids. You all have kids. Most of them go to Plum. Why are we not requiring the people that are taking care of our district to live in our district? If you live in this district, your children go to this district, you care about this district so much more than somebody, which I'm assuming he's in North Hills right now and couldn't get through with the Wexford traffic. But you should live where you're representing. You should love what you're representing. You should be standing for what you're representing. It's sad because I want to have faith in you guys. I really do, because I have little ones. They're not in the middle school yet. I don't even know the school names at this point because they've changed. But I am here because I am going to be here for the long haul. We're not going anywhere. These parents are fierce and we care about our kids. If you guys don't fix this, something else needs to be done at this point, because I'm so sick of the social media. I am so sick of the Facebook. Everybody acts immature, please. I'm talking. You're doing what Highland did the whole time. Anytime there was a person standing, didn't give them any respect.
I'm taking notes on what you're saying so I can respond to you.
Okay, well, I'm just saying. And I respect you the most because I know you. The man never respected us. We need to hire somebody that can respect us. I'm not going to fight with who you guys are putting out there to be our new superintendent. I don't know him. I hope he does a great job. But you need to look at this, electing the athletic director and allowing Highland to hire one of his buddies. It's not about hiring a buddy.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Hi friends, Amy Boteri, 309 Aberdeen Drive. Ditto, I'm going to take Tom's word there. I'm asking you guys to table tonight's vote on an AD. Highland used us. If you guys can't see it, shame on you. Some of us called it back before we hired him. I sat here through meetings, pregnant with my 4th daughter and pregnant through my 5th daughter, asking you, please do not hire this man. We cannot have that coming in here. Coming off of the scandal that we didn't want to bring it back in here. The only 2 people that sat through those meetings for all those years were Mrs. Stepnick, Mrs. Wetmore. Mr. Hill, you came in later. That's who was here. And now we're going to take this man's word. He's 0 for 3. 0 for 3. And bringing in one of his buddies, table it. Open the search up. We don't want, let Dr. Walsh open it wide open. Bring more people in. I understand we're coming into the school year. But you're taking the words of a man who, 1, used us as a stepping stone, 2, went to a school that opened their K-8 schools in October of 2020, 5 days a week. Just reminding you guys of that we didn't open that up till March. Also, just a reminder, the superintendent works for you guys. You don't work for him. You have the final say in a vote today. You have the final say into saying, we want to table this. You don't have to go through with this right now. The community is asking you to wait. And finally, what I want to say to you guys is my shirt. Highland did not change the outside view of Plum. The students did. Your staff did. It was not Highland. That NA meeting last night was an abomination to Plum. They made us sound like white trash bumpkins. And that is not what we are, and that is not what our students are. Our students are the ones who wore this name on their jerseys going out there in 10 athletics and got barraged and berated from, oh, you're from Plum. And they still went out there with grace and confidence. They are the ones who turned it around. Our athletics, our academics, our robotics, those kids are amazing up here. The musicals, everything, that is what changed the view of Plum. It was not one man, and it was not the 9 of you. It was the world-class professionals who work here and the world-class students who have attended here, go here, and have went here. It was not one man. It was the thousands of kids that have come through here before and the hundreds of teachers who did the impossible during COVID. They did it, not Highland. Stop giving him the credit. Stop taking the credit for yourselves that you guys turned it around, because it was the students and it was the staff. And don't you ever forget that that's who it was.
Anybody else at this time?
It's a pretty hard act to follow. John Anderson, 2258 Chaparral Drive. Appreciate your time. Appreciate those who replied to my email over the last 36 hours. I'm going to slightly disagree with her. Highland did improve Plum a little bit. When he got here, we were on the precipice of hell. How could it get any worse? So we got to give him a little bit of credit. We're not on the precipice of hell anymore. But other than that, I'm not so sure. I'm a big fan of the author John Gordon. Maybe you've heard of him. Self-help, motivational speaker. John Gordon has a quote that says, when there's a lack of communication, negativity will fill it. When there's a lack of communication, negativity will fill it. Many of you ran on transparency. Many of you I've had a discussion with in person, some on the phone, via email, etc. What I feel is the problem. I don't have a problem with Mr. Walsh. I don't have a problem with the new AD. Because I'm sorry, I've grasped reality because I'm not an idiot. I know this is a done deal. They're both done deals. I saw what happened when you came out of executive session. So I'm not going to pretend to be an idiot. Please don't treat me as one. So I only ask that you find a way
to create communication. The lady, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, ma'am, made it very clear that this is not a question and answer session. I can appreciate that. My question is when does a public person who you are representing, A through Z, have an opportunity to ask a question and get an honest response back? I'm not talking on Facebook. I don't even have Facebook. I don't have Instagram, nothing. Okay? I only found out about this is because my wife saw it on Facebook, and then we saw it on the news, and it was like, holy crap. I would love to have an opportunity to sit down with all of you, not split Republican and Democrat. Frankly, when it comes to a school board, I don't care which side of the aisle you want to sit on. I really don't. What I do care about, even though I only have one more year of a child being in this school district, is the students in this school district. I moved here 21 and a half years ago because people said, hey, Plum's the place to be. And it sure seemed like that for a long, long time. And then we had a superintendent who covered up teachers sleeping with students. And the proverbial you know what hit the fan. Then we had the answer, or the anti-glass pole answer of Dr. Hyland. I was here those days telling you that there was a problem because I had heard from my colleagues that it wasn't good. Darn it if I wasn't right. If you think, if you want to put your head in the sand and think the people of Plum were happy with Dr. Hyland's stance here, please go talk to somebody. Stand outside a shop and save and ask somebody a stinking question. Go to Plum Days that are coming up in a couple weeks. Have the nerve to just say, hey, can I talk to you? That's all I'm asking. Because I know these two positions are a done deal already. And if I'm wrong, I will come up here and eat crow. And that's okay. I'll live with that. Because you know what? Dr. Walsh, I got nothing against you. I don't know if you're the right person for the job or not, but if they think so, I'm going to have to go with it. And the new AD, I hope he's great. I hope he's great. But I will tell you what, if my daughter walks in here on the first day of school and there's not a banner for the section champions girls lacrosse team in the gymnasium, you haven't seen nothing yet. You understand me? You want to talk about a Title IX problem? Because the problem in Plum is that people are afraid to stand up. I've had people in my own house, as God is my witness, say, John, I can't say that because they'll come back on my family. As God is my witness, did you hear me? I had a woman in my house say that to me, and that was talking about physical threats from her boss in this district. As God is my witness, I will go down saying that that was the truth. And that's just bare minimum. If I had a student with an IEP in this district, I'd be taking you guys all to court right now. Because they're understaffed, and they're not followed, and they're illegal as all hell. And if you don't believe me, start asking people. But they're afraid. They're afraid because Plum has been acting for the last decade like a mafia family.
Your time is up, sir.
And that's why people are afraid. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Debbie Bell. Dr. Welch, I have had interactions with you, and I can tell you you are a first-class man. You guarantee to your word. Unfortunately, you have to obtain the fallout from the situation that was caused. We knew this was going on in this borough in January, that there was rumors that he was going to be gone by the end of May. Nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody wanted to listen. I am a parent of a child with an IEP. Something needs to change or hell's going to hit. I'm going to tell you now, and I'm not the only parent that is paranoid about the IEP and the lack of staffing in that department. But what concerns me today is I got an anonymous PM today concerning the hiring practice of what was going to go on with the AD position. I don't know how many of you heard it. I don't know if any of you have heard it. What it says is Hyland eliminated the Plum candidates at the start of the process. He He told one Plum candidate not to apply because he had no intentions of hiring anyone from Plum Borough. That sucks. I mean, everybody who has been a legitimate candidate for positions in this district, one by one, they live in Plum Borough, they have been fired, they have been terminated, whatever. And who's responsible for that is giving Dr. Highland, or the supervisor, free run of the roost. Every one of you here should be ashamed of yourselves, embarrassed at what you are doing to this district, to our students. It's total bullcrap. Sit back and watch the board sometime. Look on the YouTube, as I was told, meeting sometime. How many school board members are sitting up there that are on their cell phone from the start to the end of the meeting? And don't tell me you're not, because it's apparent, and other people have found to see it happening. Dr. Walsh, I actually feel sorry that you have to pick up this mess. And I hope people give you a chance. But again, I think the processes need to be open so we can honestly say we have the best. This district got a lot of problems, and we're turning into the laughingstock. The teachers here are not happy with, we're not happy with Dr. Highland. When he left North Allegheny, their teachers had a party because he was gone. And they were stupid enough to take it back. People sitting on this board, you need to start listening to residents. You need to start listening to the voters of this district. Because you know what? November election's coming. And I know it's going to be a real beat up, it's going to be an ugly election. And it's been so far. Everybody sits and talks about Ron. Elections, I can tell you, the tension at just my poll alone, and I found out later, it just wasn't my poll. It was all through the borough. Dr. Highland was asked, right to his face, on election day, are you leaving this district? Nope. I'll be here till I go to the White House. Is North Allegheny the White House? Because apparently that's mostly what he thinks it is. You guys need to start thinking of the students, the lack of staffing for the IEPs. Hell, most of the time, this whole board, you can't sit through a meeting without arguing with each other. It needs to stop. Thank you.
Are there any other comments at this time?
Mark Stropke, 137 Rural Village Drive. I just want to take this opportunity just as a parent and as a parent of a student athlete. You know, we were through, I think he's going to be a junior this year, my son, through high school. We're on our third athletic director plus an interim. So it's been a rough ride for lots of reasons. Last year we ended up, the season was about a week before the season was supposed to start. We didn't have a coach. We had a parent step up to be a coach. They did the best they could, but unfortunately, you know, sometimes you can only do what you can do with the time you have. Scheduling was a problem. Mr. Miller was throwing games at us at the last minute and ended up with back-to-back, and it was just a crappy season towards the end, the way the scheduling was done. So I just hope, and whoever the athletic director, I'm not here to tell you who to pick as your athletic director yet, but I would just wish that, you know, if somebody's vetted, it's going to be invested and stay. I've been in business. I know when you hire somebody, it's never a guarantee somebody's going to stay. And there's no guarantees, even with a contract or without a contract, that somebody's going to stay. But I hope through the vetting process that we find somebody or have found somebody that's going to be invested in all the sports programs that we have. So that's my one comment. Second comment is, I know for years the process and hiring people, you know, I know that a lot of times people are only presented to board members like an hour before a meeting. I wish that would end. You know, someday if I were to be elected to this position, I would want all members to meet 2 or 3 candidates before we got to this position tonight, just so everybody has a chance to state their opinion. Again, that's just my beliefs, and I appreciate your time. Mr. Walsh, I think you'll do a fantastic job in the interim, and, maybe the board will hire you on at some point. And I just give you, all my support, and also, the new athletic director, also as a member of the boys lacrosse boosters, hoping to work with whoever's hired so that we can alleviate situations that we had last year. So, thank you for your time.
Any other comments at this time? Mr. Devine, back to you.
Thank you all. So we have a few things we're going to cover the entire agenda tonight. We're going to go a little out of order. It'll make sense why as we go through. But first, we're going to move on to the president's report. So I'll keep this brief. Before we move on tonight, I want to take a moment to thank Dr. Highland for his years of service and dedication to bettering our district. He gave all he had in his time here, and we could not be more grateful. Congratulations to Dr. Highland, and good luck at North Allegheny, except obviously anytime Plum plays NA. As one door closes, another opens. Tonight starts the next chapter in the Plum Borough School District. In a few moments, we will vote to name Dr. Rick Walsh the interim superintendent, with the hopes of coming to an agreement with him in the coming weeks on a full-time contract to continue bringing this district forward as a model for other districts to follow. Dr. Walsh is a 1987 graduate of Plum High School, and it was only 36 short years ago that he roamed the very halls of Plum High School. We have nothing but faith in Dr. Walsh, and we look forward to your leadership, integrity, dedication, and professionalism as we hand the reins over to you. All right, we're going to skip now to the personnel agenda. Dr. Anderson, lead board liaison, if you want to go through the items here, and then we can have a discussion, and then we will open it for a vote.
Give me a minute, it's updating. Did it update?
You want my paper?
It's just not updating with what we did in exec.
Technical issues.
Shoot, I think Jen's getting one.
That's what happens when he's savvy.
I think we're going to, it's all right, she's got it, Dr. Wong.
Does that have the aesthetic problems? Paper copy? Anyone need paper? Paper?
I think I'm up to date.
Okay. I just want to make sure from a discussion perspective, we don't normally discuss personnel.
Yeah, so we could actually just
We're not going
probably
to discuss personnel, but we are going to vote, and Mike, can you just let me, Mr. Devine, how do we want to do it?
So, well, actually, before we open this for vote, we do discuss, and obviously we're going to be talking about bringing Dr. Walsh on as interim acting. Interim, okay. Superintendent. So I don't know if any board members want to say anything before we move on that piece of it.
But let's wait, because we have, I just want to make sure, we have resignation, and then we have hire for appointing of the interim. I just want to make sure we do it right.
I don't think there's anything to discuss for.
Right, so for the resignation, do we need to vote on accepting the resignation before we discuss and vote on the interim?
Or can we vote on all personnel at the end?
Right.
Oh, you can vote on all first at the same time.
Okay. So obviously, number one, resignation of Dr. Highland, and then we have another in there that we're not going to have from a discussion perspective, and then hiring, appointing Dr. Walsh interim effective July 1st. The resignation will take place June 30th, and then Dr. Walsh will accept when we vote on it, accept the interim position effective July 1st. Any discussion on the interim position?
I just want to say I've worked with Dr. Welsh on many different things, and that is a man that doesn't leave anything go unchecked, unnoticed. He thinks about everything, even the stuff that you typically wouldn't think about. He's very thorough in what he does and everything that he does, and I think it's great for this district.
I would like to first congratulate Dr. Walsh on his interim appointment, but I would also like to make a motion, and that is that the board do a search and open the superintendent's position for 2 weeks and begin the hiring process to fill the vacancy permanently. I would ask for a second and
Can you hold
also,
on the motion for 1 second? We'll go through the motion here, and then you can make that motion after we get through the interim portion
as
of it.
long as we get to it. Thank you.
Anyone else have comments on the interim position?
So I'd just like to say, the last 4 days have been a whirlwind, to say the least. We as a board have faced a lot, contrary to what people want to believe. When I met with Dr. Highland on Friday morning, I was fully expecting him to tell me he was retiring. I think Angela can attest to the fact that my jaw dropped when I heard what he said. Was there writing on the wall? It might have been. But at that time, I couldn't go off of anonymous letters. I couldn't go off of Facebook posts. I had to go off of the information we had, which is what we as a board always do, is go off of real verified information. In that time, Dr. Walsh has stepped up. I've talked to him between meetings, which some have been a minute long, some have been longer. He is very thorough. So he's doing 2 jobs at one time right now, and if the past 24 hours, 48 hours are any indication of what's to come, this district is in excellent hands. And I would not think twice about the interim portion of it. And once we get to the contract portion of it, I would not think twice about the full-time portion of it.
Dr. Anderson, can you explain, this was a plan, right, to make him deputy of
Well, and
that thought
absolutely.
process?
That was, part of, contrary to popular belief, I would just like to say, Mr. Caligiuri, well done on writing, and those of us who added edits, because I promise you that press release was edited at a baseball field. So that was literally written on Sunday, and all of us doing stuff. I walked out of church and walked into an executive session, and then worked on a press release, and so on, right, so on and so forth. So, yeah, the board had a busy weekend, but I would say in 2018, Dr. Walsh was hired. In 2020, the board made a long-term plan, and I think a strategic plan that we're seeing carried out this evening to make sure that there was continuity in leadership whenever either a resignation or a retirement, and to Mr. Devine's point, I was expecting a retirement as well, was going to occur. And that speaks to being able to seamlessly, in the middle of a summer, with a gentleman who is well-versed on how to move the school district into a new school year, and who I will concur with what Mr. Devine said. I have absolutely no reservations. As being the education chair, I have worked hand in hand with Dr. Walsh since he's been here, and have the utmost respect for his diligence, his attention to detail, and to what so many folks have said, his tireless care and concern for the safety and the education of our students. And so we move into the past 48 hours and into this next school year with no concerns for all of our buildings operating the way that they should, if not better than how they have the year before, from Dr. Walsh's leadership and how his administration will move forward with that. So definitely a plan in place, and I think this board, and I think it's important to note, this is simply an appointment from an interim perspective that we're doing tonight, and then the board has the decision to make moving forward on how we move forward with that long term. So I think it's important from a visibility standpoint for folks to understand on the agenda tonight is appointing an interim superintendent and being able to have that continuity of leadership to happen. Does that answer your question?
Perfect.
Okay, yeah.
And if I could just echo what Dr. Anderson said, we did come up with a plan, I guess if you will, if Dr. Highland was to retire. And so I actually did ask him on election day, I said, did I miss a memo? Because I don't always read the capsule every day. So I said, did I miss a memo? Are you leaving? And he said, yeah, I'm going to go be vice president at the White House. And I'm like, well, great. I think you'd be a better addition. It was more of just and he said, no, I'm going nowhere. I said, okay. So for those that think we lied, we can't go off of the hearsay. And I know about the letters. I personally got a 3-page letter in my mailbox in 2018. And with all of that said, we made a plan if he was to retire, not if he was to leave, but everybody moved in motion with that plan. And I have the utmost confidence in Dr. Walsh.
I've never heard, and you're around the buildings, you know what it is to be a parent, you hear everything, whether you want to hear it or you don't want to hear it. And I've never heard a bad word. I've never heard anything negative about Dr. Walsh. He takes time to call parents back. On the littlest issue to the biggest issue, he takes time to call each and every board member back if they were to request information. There's never been any issues with that. I'm looking forward to a new day and going forward. And as my husband said, well, Dr. Walsh knows how to mix the old Plum and the new Plum as a 78 grad. So,
87.
yeah, well, Terry's a 78. So. but seriously, with all that said, there is a good mix, and the parents seem to like him. And I've never heard anything negative. I'm asking that the public give him the chance to prove himself. And my biggest concern on Sunday, and I'll say it here, I said it then, I don't care about anything more than our kids having a smooth transition and the school year starting right, and our building principals are exceptional, and I have no concern with that at all. And let the board figure out the rest of it as we go forward.
Michelle, can I just add one thing to that? Megan and I spoke through text earlier today, and I think one of your biggest reservations.
Yes, I actually wanted to talk about that real quick, if I may. As somebody who was not on the board in 2020, when this plan was developed, somebody who wasn't talked to about the plan, somebody who only knew about the said plan on Sunday, Dr. Walsh, I will tell you that I support your interim appointment. I will. I've seen parents come up to the podium and thank you for helping their child when nobody else would. I've seen how the community, I look with an open mind and an open heart. And I've seen it with my own two eyes, and I've seen how you act with us as a board, and I support you. But again, I hear this plan, and this was total news to me. You must follow a plan that we all had placed. Well, the board's going to look a lot different. So, you better get on page with some of the people who are still going to be with the plan. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and to that point, what I was going to say to add to that is that we never talked about the plan, and I think I even said it was circumstantial because it never came up. And that's my apology to Mr. Sokolsky, Megan, and Devin, because we never talked about it because there wasn't a need to at the time. And not that it was being hidden or anything. I think that was 2 boards ago that we...
Yeah, but that was the purpose, was to create a position that was a deputy superintendent. Right. Going from 2 assistants to going to a deputy superintendent allowed for organizational structure. If you look at our org chart, well, look at it quick because we're going to have to adjust, but if you look at our org chart, you'll see that put Dr. Walsh in a position where he had authority over pretty much everything else that was happening, right? And so that was that long-term plan, is allow him to have that training and be able to be over and in those those roles of responsibility in order for that to be a seamless transition.
And you were on a board where we had a similar situation, didn't have a deputy in place, and from what I understand from the past, that didn't go so well. So that was kind of why the plan
and here's what I would say. Yeah, and I think part of the difficulty in that was an individual who wasn't necessarily prepared by being a deputy. And so when you weren't a deputy position, it's not discounting the individual by any stretch of the imagination, but it was assuming responsibility that you weren't prepared for. And that's tough. And that was, I think, a difficult transition. Yep. That's why this setup allows for that to be much more seamless.
Yeah,
right?
And I had conversations with her at that time, and I loved her when she was at Pittsburgh, and she was fantastic, but she clearly told me how overwhelming it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to take over.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and it was trying times.
And the other person left.
Yeah, yep.
And I will say, Megan, to your point about nobody knew, well, the reality is when someone's it was always the assumption, and maybe wrong on our parts, that Dr. Highland would retire. And so you kind of have time to talk through that when that's going to happen. Right? They have to put papers in, and there's a whole process for that. We didn't think through this part, to be frank with you. I mean, it was more what happens. And there's no secret, I was not in support of that new contract, nor the pay raise that went with it. But with that said, I was certainly in support of lining up to make sure that there was proper succession and proper planning, because I was on the board when we had turmoil with the superintendent, and the effect on our kids was awful, and I think Mrs. Bucieri spoke to that tonight too, that the kids rose up, the kids kept on the Plum Pride, and we can't forget that. They did all of that in the midst of turmoil, so I don't want to see us back in turmoil.
I know this isn't Robert's Rules of Order, but you already broke that
Sir.
by skipping the agenda.
Sir, this is not time for citizens.
Tell us what the plan is, because we're all sitting here going.
This is not time for citizens' comments.
But we're all sitting here wanting.
Okay, I have,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
May I be allowed to say something? I just want to say, Dr. Welsh, I'm excited to have you in this position as interim superintendent, and I'm hopeful that we can keep you as superintendent, which was the plan, that he would take over responsibility as deputy superintendent over time, to be prepared. As Mr. Devine has pointed out several times, we were worried about retirement before the end of Dr. Hyland's contract. So this gave us a smooth transition for our kids, and I think our due diligence will be finding someone to come in as an assistant superintendent who proves the way that Dr. Walsh has proven that they are ready to be a deputy superintendent, so that we can be prepared, because 1978, you graduated? I'm kidding, but, I think if you look around at what's happening in several districts, these transitions are not smooth, and they're not getting superintendents that necessarily they may want to have in place, and we are very fortunate to have you. So congratulations on interim.
And it was also, I think, and you can attest to this, it was also made very clear.
I have faith in you, but I will say this, you guys gotta get your lives in order. Because this
Can-
man interviewed for 30 applicants.
This is not time for citizens' comments.
30 applicants.
This is not
and they
time.
asked Hyland to come join them. Yes, come join us, you already have a lawsuit. Come back, come home. Toodles.
Tim? All right, so it was also made clear during that process that it wasn't a guarantee. You had to earn this. And I think the board, after the discussion we had this past weekend, is on board for the interim portion of it.
I'm still waiting for my opportunity.
For the
It's already
motion,
been 2 or 3 people that have jumped ahead, but is it my time now?
for the motion?
No, to be in the discussion.
Absolutely, that's why you have a microphone.
Thank you. Number one, I agree with what Megan said. If the plan was in place for the number of years that it's been in, I do believe transparency, that at least we should have been shared at least what the plan was. And number two, if we're going to talk about transparency and making sure that we as well as the public know, the plan not only covers Dr. Walsh going into his position, but the plan covers subsequent positions as well, which again, being new to the board and not involved in the plan, my question really comes down to a simple one. When this plan was put together, was it already assumed that Dr. Hyland was leaving, so that we had to have a plan together to make sure that he was covered?
It was more of a what if before his contract was over. Like Michelle said, the fear at that time was retirement. But
He got an extension, didn't he? He and Dr. Walsh both got extensions.
But they
Yeah,
also
people
were
do
coming
age.
up on, he was coming up on 30 years. So we knew what was able to transpire, and we wanted to be prepared for that.
And so the new board members didn't need to know any of this plan.
Literally, we did it by creating an organizational chart and making a deputy superintendent so that everybody reported into the deputy, who then reported into the superintendent, so that should the superintendent retire, there was somebody in a position of leadership and complete continuity would be in place to take an interim role. And this is working out in this situation.
And the principal to take the place and.
I don't know where you're getting, none of that has been discussed, or I don't know where that's coming from. We're literally talking about
Please,
that point.
Angela, don't play that game with me.
Mr. Sokolsky,
It's
we
been
do
discussed.
we do have people within the
It's been
district.
discussed, we're not being transparent. The plan is out there. The plan has been known for months prior to this occurring.
What place?
Okay, The plan that everybody
What
keeps,
is the plan? What is your version of the plan?
you're asking for the plan?
There
interesting.
are people in the district who have papers to apply as an assistant superintendent.
Absolutely,
When
and
we
there are
open that
people
position.
outside of the district.
Absolutely, and that
who
will be
can apply
open to
for
a search.
superintendent and principals and
Yes.
other positions.
And that will be open to a search as an assistant
Superintendent will be
superintendent.
open to a search?
As the chair,
Superintendent's
I'm calling a point of order, please stop.
can we, as a
What
chair?
point of order?
Calling a
can't
point of order,
discuss
please
personnel.
stop.
Because I'm discussing,
Mr.
as usual.
Yeah, we have to go into executive session to discuss personnel like this, or we can't, this is not a sunshine law, we can't do that. So we cannot get down that road. That's why I was trying to be very gentle with this the whole way through, because the way this agenda works, it's not normally part of the discussion. So again, to bring it back to, the only thing that we are voting on tonight is the appointment of Dr. Walsh as interim effective July 1st, after we vote on accepting the point of order, whatever, the technicality of accepting the resignation effective June 30th, we accept the appointment of the interim on July 1st. On that specific point, is there, or agenda item, is there any other comment to be made? I would say even incredibly gingerly to even say discussion.
I think we talked about, because it's on here as well, can we discuss if you want to, or you want to turn it over to Mrs. Sedlak about the process?
Of this or the process of the AD?
AD.
Okay, so, I would say we're going to vote on them all at once, right? So I'm
Right.
just making sure it's in B. Okay, I'm sorry.
So where's my motion right now,
It's
Sid?
coming.
It's
I
coming,
told you I
we're
would
not
get
at the
to it. It's
voting
coming.
point.
You forgot me at the last meeting, so.
Go ahead, Angela.
Okay, so I would just say there are teachers within there, long-term sub, and then we have where we are voting on the athletic director, and that's listed there. I would say, just to clarify for everyone what that hiring process looked like, in most general terms, trying to abide by that personnel gets discussed in there, not out here. But in saying that that hiring process included over 20 candidates, 3 rounds of interviews. In every one of those rounds of interviews, it was standardized questions that were asked to each candidate the same. Those who were involved, who were the employers sitting in the interview process, scored the candidates. Everyone sitting in that room had insight into everyone else's score. Those were discussed, and then candidates were moved forward from a discussion within the room. We had high school and middle school administration who was a part of it. We had superintendent's cabinet who was a part of it. And there was I would just say there was nothing wrong or hidden by any stretch of the imagination about that hiring process. References were checked, things happened above and beyond that needed to happen in order for the recommendation of the athletic director to come forward, and we as a board sat through for, I would say, a good 40 minutes of an interview process with the final candidate tonight that just happened. Good? Good, Dane?
and-
Is that fine? Okay.
And normally, the final round would have been with Dr. Highland, but given the circumstances, this was your final interview, correct?
Myself and Mrs. Sedlak sat in on the final round.
Okay. And this,
During each round of the interview, there were natural breaks in which those top candidates moved forward. The candidate that is recommended this evening, it's my recommendation. I vetted the candidate. I believe from somebody that grew up in Plum, who is frustrated about the turnover in that athletic department, as somebody who was a student athlete here at Plum, it bothers me more than most of you probably realize. I know the benefits that position can bring to the school district. I believe we have an exceptional candidate, and the administration supports this candidate moving forward.
Thank you. And we as a board realize there are issues with the timeline of the process, and we've discussed making adjustments to that process because that's been one of the things we've heard, especially over the last couple of weeks. So with that, recommend approval to accept and resolve personnel items 1 to 4 as listed.
We're not doing them individually?
Are you looking at the agenda?
Yes, sir, I am, thank you.
Okay.
And I can, by the way, I can also read,
Can I-
just in
Okay,
case.
so are you with me then? We're under number 4. It says recommend approval to accept and resolve personnel items 1 to 4 as listed.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
I oppose A, so it'd be 2G, and let me say something real quick for why I oppose it. The candidate was a good candidate. It's not a personal, my vote is not personal at all. It comes with communication issues, processing issues, and most of all, trust. I think the community has lost trust in a lot of people, and only with trust, only how you can build trust when it's broken is by your actions and your words. So that's why for letter G, I would no. I'm torn with this decision, and I think many of you know, I spent the last 3.5 years, and I agree to disagree on a lot of things, and this one I usually don't bend or fold for anything like this. I genuinely like the candidate. I'm happy that he's committed to moving here and wanting to be here. That's something important. As you talk through, again, back to being a parent in sports, and those that are, you know the deal, you hear it. You hear it more than some that aren't. And I have a real issue with our rushed process. I legitimately do. I have a problem, and I've said, and I know this is the process, so I know we can talk about it, and I cleared it through Dane. I have a problem with meeting a candidate for the first time, maybe with or without a resume, an hour before a voting meeting, and that being okay. I want to be able to read a resume, I want to be able to understand who somebody is, and ask intelligent questions. Tonight was the most prepared that I have felt with an administrative candidate in 3.5 years. Thank you, Dr. Walsh. Because you and I talked about that yesterday at length. I have a real issue with the 1 hour before, and it's like the hot second, and somebody comes in, and it's like, hey, thanks for coming here, welcome, and then people leave. I have issues with that, because we don't get to speak intelligently, we don't get to look at someone's resume, what makes them stand out, or maybe those last 2 candidates, what makes them stand out above the rest, so we can ask real questions and get into a real dialogue. And so I'm asking, going forward, that we start having those conversations and fixing that part of the process. I think we've seen where it can go awry, I'm just gonna put it that way, and we need to fix it, because it's not okay, it is not a good look. And I'm asking again that we fix it. I'm going along with this with the hopes that I've extended my olive branch, that all of you will extend yours back, and we fix this.
Just for clarification for the minutes, you're a yes, you just wanted to state that, correct?
Yeah, that's what I said, I'm going along with it, but I'm asking that it get fixed, not in November or December, it gets fixed, because it's a really bad look.
I think that that's already been addressed tonight, that we are changing the process, correct? And I just want to add that since we're doing full disclosure, when I came in today, I was on the fence. I made that very clear to a couple members of the board. And this was by far the best interview that I have sat through as a school board director. And that is why I am voting yes. I'm excited. I think we're headed for some great things. And I think we are getting somebody who is committed to being here and being part of our community. So hopefully you get the 5+ that you need tonight.
All right, before we, go ahead.
Thank you. I abstain from 2G for the athletic. I believe he is a viable candidate. I've heard what the public has to say. I'm an elected official. I just can't get over the fence. And so rather than a no or a yes, I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Okay. Other than that, any other abstentions? All motions pass. Before we go any further, I just want to make sure that we are all in agreement of how this is going to work. I appreciate all the additional discussion, but that is for before the vote. So when we call for the vote, everything we just said, that's fine, but let's do that please before the vote. So that being, yeah, no, it's, first, congratulations, Dr. Walsh.
Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Carpin, congratulations. If you'd like to step up, you can. I warned you out there, you're going to hear some things you might not want to hear, but it was probably going to be directed at us, and I think that was the case, so the floor is yours.
No, thank you, I appreciate it. First of all, thank you for the school board and trusting me to lead the athletic department. It means a lot. I get that I still will need to earn some trust, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. That's part of the territory. I'm beyond excited to get to know and meet the student athletes and their families and giving them the proper recognitions that they deserve. I'm excited to get to know the coaches, to work with the administration, to work with the boosters, and of course, you guys as school board members. But probably the most important thing that I'm excited about, which you guys mentioned just a little bit ago, is I'm here with my wife, my son, who didn't last too long, but he was here for the beginning of the meeting, so apologize for that. But we're excited to become a part of the community, and that's not something that we take lightly. I wouldn't be accepting this position and saying that we're coming to the community, and I'm not just saying that, we've already started the process of looking for houses and putting ours on the market. And that's, you don't get more permanent than that. So I'm all in. I understand I'm still gonna have to prove myself, and that's fine. That's what I like. I'm looking forward to it. I've noticed that this is a very passionate community, and to say the least, but that's okay. I'd rather that than them not caring at all. So I'm excited. I can't wait to get started. And again, thank you.
Mr. Carpin, I just want to take a moment just to bring the community up to speed in regards to why we believe you are the reasons why we moved you forward for the recommendation. Mr. Carpin comes to the district with a master's degree in sports management and a bachelor's degree in mass media arts and journalism. In his former post, he served as the athletic director and director of transportation in the Highland School District. Prior to joining Highland School District, Mr. Carpin spent 3 years as the assistant athletic director in the North Allegheny School District. Mr. Carpin is a well-respected member of the athletic community, having contributed significantly to the WPIL, where he served as on the baseball committee and played several roles with the Big 56 Conference. As an officer in the Northern Area Athletic Directors Association, he is well-versed in the needs of today's student athlete. Additionally, his expertise as an instructor in human kinetics coaching education and sports first aid education courses for coaches ensure that he is an ideal candidate to build the tradition of the Mustang Athletics. As the current deputy superintendent, Mr. Carpin went through a rigorous process that included many qualified candidates. Mr. Carpin's seasoned approach to running the athletic department helped him emerge as the best person for the job. We are also pleased that Mr. Carpin made it very clear during the interview process that he's committed to Plum and willing to demonstrate that commitment. The administration team, we were very proud to make this recommendation for Mr. Carpin. We're excited that you're going to be with us. We're looking forward to your start date, which we believe may be as early as July 3rd, which is Monday. There's a lot of work to do, and I think you can hear from the community. There's high expectations, and we believe you're the person to fill those shoes. Okay.
All right, and then
can I add one more? Sure. I just want to take a moment because I addressed the athletic director because I just was named interim superintendent. I wanted to, for somebody that grew up over the hill from here, that I remember missing the bus and walking Barnes Road to get to the high school.
Please don't tell us. It's in the snow.
not uphill both ways. I have a different perspective of, in this seat. I attended Harding Elementary, Center, Pivot when I was a junior high, and I am a proud graduate of the class of '87. I want to first start by thanking the board with my heartfelt gratitude for the opportunity to serve as the interim superintendent for the Plum Borough School District. I am truly honored and privileged to have been entrusted in this important role. First and foremost, I want to extend my deepest appreciation to each member of the school board for your tireless dedication, commitment, and unwavering belief in the power of education. Your leadership and steadfast support have laid the foundation for our district's success, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work alongside you to further our shared goals. As the interim superintendent, I am committed to maintaining open lines of communication with the school board. I believe that transparency and collaborative decision-making is vital to our district's success. During the time of transition, my goal for our students, parents, and community is to provide a smooth transition as we move into the 23-24 school year. I am committed to preparing for the arrival of our students in a little over a month and a half. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Dane, I have a question for you before we get to Mr. Sokolsky's motion. Because of sunshine, this is not on the agenda, but because it's fluid as part of the conversation, we are okay to take this motion?
I think it would be something where if the motion were to pass, we would have to figure out how to effectuate it. That being said, because it doesn't involve the expenditure of any funds, I think the board can at least entertain it to see if there's a willingness to move forward with it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sokolsky?
Okay, so at this time, I would like to make a motion that the board do a search and open the superintendent's position for 2 weeks and begin the hiring process to fill the vacancy of the superintendent in a permanent nature.
We have a motion?
And I need a second.
So it gets to Scott. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Yeah, just pause. You can.
I forgot the microphone wasn't on.
Yeah, you can talk.
No, I'm asking because it's a new motion.
Ultimately, it's up to the president, and I'll say this as well, actually, because it's a new motion, we would have to open the floor to citizens' comments.
Okay. Are there
That
any?
was going to be my second question when I realized my microphone wasn't on for the first question. Sorry.
Okay, so
Do we have to open it before we vote, or?
Before you vote.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so there's a new motion on the floor, which I think you all heard. Some people did speak to that point already tonight. Is there any additional people following the same rules that Mrs. Macro outlined earlier that would like to add anything before we vote?
Well, can I also just make a motion that we go over the time limit? So if we're going to make two motions, we have to motion to go over our time limit, correct?
We will at some point.
No, we're not there yet.
We have 20 minutes.
No, it's
started out
10.
until
It's
10.
3
Oh, I
hours.
thought it was 9. Okay.
Well, I mean, we started at 7, so. Don't we wish?
You started at 7:15.
Whole lot of motion.
I know, but you started at 7:15, not 7, so you gotta count your hours. My quick
Hey, thanks
question,
for that.
same address as before. The AD, since he's willing to move, which is great, because that's helpful, and there was no discussion, we're hopping through things because, we got steps to do. Was there a relocation stipend offered? And if there is, do we have a backup plan should he decide, hell no, I don't want to be here? Because, we just gave Highland a $40,000 raise and then some, and then he bailed before his 5 years was up. So do we have a stipend for this, and do we have a way to protect us before we go ahead and pass all this?
We're talking now about the motion that Mr. Sokolsky just
Well, it's
made.
about the AD.
No, it's about the superintendent.
I'm sorry, it's about the superintendent, open the
All right, then I'll be
search
back up
for
at the end
superintendent.
For non-agenda items, but just keep that in mind.
Okay.
'cause I'll be
Thank
back.
you, ma'am.
I think this motion is only necessary because the plan is unclear. It's clear that the people who were on the board in 2020 had a plan. I'm not sure if that plan is voted on, if it's in the minutes, because if it's not in the minutes as a voted on plan, I'm not sure if it's an official plan. I don't quite buy that it's the new hierarchy. That's only a half answer. So my question is, can you explain what the plan was and is? If the plan was simply to make Dr. Walsh the deputy superintendent so that he could be an acting superintendent in the case for whatever reason Dr. Highland left, then that sounds to me like a very intelligent plan. If the plan also included that Dr. Walsh was then going to automatically be given the superintendent's position without posting it to everyone else and interviewing other people, that takes away from the intelligence of that plan. So all I'm asking, and I think the public deserves this before you move forward, is first of all, was the plan voted on in public beyond the hierarchy? Because if the hierarchy wasn't explained, you know, that's a bunch of baloney and you could be sued within minutes. So, can you detail the plan and where does the plan stop? Because again, I think it's an awesome thing. Some of you know I work at Fox Chapel. They did the same thing to have a deputy superintendent for this exact same reason. It's an intelligent idea. But if it was an assumption that automatically, and Dr. Walsh again, this is just because they're doing you dirty, buddy, in my opinion. They're doing you dirty because they're putting you dirty in the rest of the public for this. But if the assumption was to then just give him the superintendent's position, that's not right. The job should be posted. The job should be posted and allow for candidates. Quite honestly, I think for more than 2 weeks, he's already the deputy superintendent. He can handle that. He's now been made the interim superintendent. The man is well prepared. I have no doubt for that. No doubt whatsoever. But I think in the effort of transparency and being honest with the public of Plum, it should be allowed that you collect interested candidates to fulfill the position. If after a full vetting process, Dr. Walsh is still the #1 candidate, fantastic, I'll shake the man's hand. Again, Dr. Walsh, I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with you. But if that plan was not voted on and in minutes, that's a bunch of bunk. And you all know it, and I know you know it because you're all squirming in your seats right now.
Mr. Dice, could you clarify whether or not we have to post the position and why we would not have to post the position?
Hold on, can you pause his time if he has anything more to speak?
Let's finish citizens' comments, and then I think I can respond to that.
Thank you.
So all I'm asking for is, I know this isn't question and answer, but Robert's Rules of Order went out the window when you had a president's report that's not even on the agenda. So that's Robert's Rules of Order. Again, I am not an idiot. Please do not treat me as one. Please answer the question. I think the people of Plum here in attendance and the people who are going to watch the video tomorrow at least deserve that answer, or else some people are going to have some explaining to do. Like Ricky Ricard used to say to Lucy, you got some explaining to do, Lucy. Well, there's some explaining to do right now.
Hi, I'm Brooke Homan, 1065 Walk-In Court. So I want to just call out what Michelle said about the process, the hiring process moving forward and making sure it's brought to the board, multiple candidates ahead of time. That would kind of fall in line with this superintendent role. Mr. Walsh, or Dr. Walsh, I'm sorry, I don't know you. I pulled my kids out of the district because I didn't like the decisions that were being made and sent them private. But this would fall right in line. A position should be posted. You might be very qualified. You might be the best qualified, like they all said. There also might be other candidates that are more qualified than you, and we have no idea if we don't actually put it out there and see what's out there. So I just think that as a whole, like Michelle, like how you said, you'd like moving forward the process to be a little bit more transparent. And they all agreed that that was going to happen moving forward. Well, this is the forward, right? So this is where you have to step up and decide, are we going to make the right decisions or not? And I do think the behavior up here is kind of embarrassing. It's childish. You all brought up the plan, you talked about the plan, and And then when Mr. Sokolsky is asking questions about the plan, you all of a sudden raise the sunshine law. I just think that like we need to make sure that we're just like all aligned and stop acting childish and start making ourselves look like adults. Because I just can't see bringing my kids back here when people, grown adults, are behaving like this. It's disappointing. And, you know, I pay taxes. And so I just feel like I have a right to at least, you know, speak up here and talk to all of you and hope that you can post a position and look for qualified candidates and make the decision based off of the most qualified candidate that exists and not just a process you had in place, because a lot can happen since 2018. There can be a lot of qualified candidates since then that might be better aligned with our district, might have different experience. So I just think that moving forward, you kind of need to step up. And I wish you all the best in the hiring process and interview process, hopefully.
Any other comments at this time? Mr. Devine?
All right, Mr. Dice, can you address a few of those items?
So Amy, if I recall, your question was, what are the legal requirements to post an interview for the position? No, they're...
Right, ask your question again.
I just asked if we were required under law to post a position of superintendent, or if we can promote from deputy to, which basically is what we're discussing, is a promotion. It's somebody who has been vetted, interviewed, gone through the process, has proven themselves to most of the people sitting here on the board. So it's not, okay, I'm getting off point, sorry.
Yeah.
But yes, is it a requirement that a position be posted, or are we able to make a promotion of that sort?
To answer the question simply, there's no legal requirement to post the superintendent position or hold interviews legally. You are absolutely allowed to appoint Dr. Walsh. As far as what the board wants to do, that's obviously up to your discretion. Thank you.
All right, so I don't know how it got called the plan all of a sudden, but one of the things that we've been talking about, the plan is not to put Dr. Walsh right into that position. This was a what happens if and when the superintendent leaves on an interim basis. Now, because of the work that Dr. Walsh has proven that he can do and has done, it would be exactly what we just talked about. It would be a promotion because he's the right person, not because that was the plan the whole time. We are lucky that we have somebody like Dr. Walsh that we can even consider for that type of promotion.
Can we just say the dates? In 2018, Dr. Walsh was hired as an assistant superintendent. In 2020, the board promoted Dr. Walsh to deputy superintendent so that if the superintendent would get ill, would leave, anything would happen, there would be a continuity of leadership in a moment just like we're having right now. That is the long-term strategic planning that we did, was to adjust an organizational chart and to name in 2020 Dr. Walsh to deputy superintendent. That is where all of the other, whatever anybody else is attaching to it, I don't want my name anywhere near it. Because that is all that the board did when we did that in 2020, was to create a continuity in leadership so that in a moment like this transition would go seamlessly, period.
And if I may add to that.
Yep.
You know, I'll go back to, because we have precedents in this district with other things. The board I sat on, we shifted, right? Members changed, but guess what? If something was to transpire, and I don't need to go back to the history of it all, but if something was to transpire, this is who's moving where, this is who's going what, because guess what? It was about continuity. It was about making sure our buildings were as seamless as we can get them amongst turmoil. So there's nothing different in this case, except we're not going through other turmoil. This is what we're dealing with. But I'd like to answer Mrs. Holman if I can. when we all started saying executive session, because there's certain things you can and cannot release in public when it comes to personnel, and you can't bring up additional names or start calling out members of staff in public without opening up the district to liability. So it's one thing to gingerly talk about personnel in public, but it's another thing to be very specific in public when nobody's on the hiring block, right, for tonight.
Right.
So other than what we just did tonight, that's all we did tonight. And to make assumptions on conversations we've had or whatnot, no one's in line for anything different.
Yeah, and I think to your point, for anybody who's saying we're doing our jobs, we weren't, if you saw, there were people that moved everywhere as soon as that conversation started, because everyone here is trying to be fiscally responsible and keep us from liability and from lawsuits and from spending undue tax money for us not handling it correctly. And so that's exactly what you're explaining, but that's the reason that chaos ensued, was everybody trying to make sure we were going to handle that correctly, because that's what's supposed to happen in there, not out here. So I appreciate that, Michelle, thank you.
And I will say this, I'm not opposed to us having a conversation going forward in the future. This is not a decision for tonight to open up the superintendent's position. I'm not opposed to having those conversations. I'm opposed to saying tonight, here's the timeline, 2 weeks. I'm opposed to all of that. And let me tell the public why. I'm not opposed to having the conversation to say, okay, we as a board want to maybe open it up. We want to maybe see what's out there. Maybe we don't. Maybe we do. Maybe Dr. Walsh has proven himself. But no matter what would happen, and this goes back to the 60 days that's online, and I'm just saying it what it is, because the nonsense is ridiculous. Any administrator that would be coming from any other school district or building, I promise you, they're not letting them come to Plum right now. They legally can be held for 60 days. So if we wanted to go and pick an assistant principal from a district or a principal from a district to make an assistant superintendent, athletic director, it really doesn't matter. They can legally hold those administrators for 60 days. That's the law. So to rush a decision right now does us no good, because school is starting. And if this was us, I've said this 100 times, if this was us, I'd be saying, I really don't care about what district so-and-so is going to. They're staying here because they're needed to get us ready for school. And that's the most critical time as the school year starting. So we're looking to rush a conversation and a decision that we don't have to do right now. And I would ask that the board take their time and have executive sessions and conversations as to what our steps are going forward.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table.
But isn't that why his title is interim? There's no time period. And I know that Dr. Walsh, having worked with him for the time that we have, is committed and very likely will prove himself as the best candidate. But if it's necessary to work the motion, I can reword it to that I would like to motion that the board open up the search and just remove the 2 weeks, if it's a time period, but.
Wait, what 2 weeks? What's the 2 weeks?
Go ahead.
The comment was, I think they're referring to the 2-week period, but we'll just leave the motion where it's at.
So we have a motion and a second on the table to, correct me if I'm wrong, open the search. At whatever point it is, we're to open a search for more candidates.
Smacker, did you write it down, what the motion is or no?
It's a motion to open this superintendent's position.
For 2 weeks.
He specifically said 2 weeks.
So that's the motion.
Okay, so that's the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Any abstain?
Can I ask for a roll call?
I abstain.
Can I ask for a roll call?
Sure. Ms. Macker, can you do a roll call?
We're doing a roll call vote. It is a rotating alphabetical order. So I will call each person's name, and I'm going to ask that you either say yes or no. The motion on the table is to open the superintendent's position for candidate search for a period of 2 weeks. If you would like to move that motion forward, yes, no, or abstain. We're going to start with Ms. Wetmore.
No.
Mr. Adams?
No.
Dr. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Caligiuri?
Abstain.
Ms. Shutterwitz?
I abstain. I'd like a little bit more time to discuss it.
Mr. Devine?
No.
Mr. Hill?
Nope.
Mr. Sokolsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Stepnick?
I agree, because my no wouldn't be a no. It's more of I want discussion, so I'm going to abstain as well, because I wouldn't be open to discussion, but in there, where we have an actual dialogue.
The motion does not pass. We have 1 yes, 5 noes, and 3 abstains.
Thank you. Okay, since we're still on personnel, I want to add one more thing just to save time later. Ms. Bocheri, I'll answer your question now. In the contract, it'll be public, Ms. Macro, tonight or tomorrow?
I'm sorry?
The AD contract will be public tonight or tomorrow, correct?
Yes, the majority of it is already public as it's part of the Act 93,
Okay.
which is our other administrators, but the addendum will be placed this evening.
Okay, so some of the things that are in there that made the board, I think, a little bit more comfortable with the 7-2 passing of the AD is, one, we asked that he put his money where his mouth is. We know what the turnovers look like. The past couple of years, he will be our 4th athletic director in my 4 years on the board. That's not a good look. That's not good. None of us disagree with that. Two of the athletic directors we lost did not leave for other schools. They left for personal reasons or to leave the industry altogether. That being said, we asked him to put his money where his mouth is. If he leaves the district within 5 years, he owes us back $10,000. I'm not going to say his salary out loud. It's already posted. You can take a look at it.
It's on the agenda.
Oh, it's on the agenda? Okay. So his salary at $95,000 is much less than the going rate for a director, for an athletic director, I believe, in the county at this point. And you heard that he was already looking for houses here in Plum. There is a agreement within his contract that states once he is here and has a residence in the borough of Plum, we will bring him up to $105,000, which is still, I think, lower than the going rate for a WPU athletic director. So we got a good deal on a proven athletic director. And those are two of the big factors that anybody who was undecided walking in changed their mind. And that information put a lot of us at ease as to why he is the right person to move forward with. So, all right, moving on. Student achievement and activities. Dr. Anderson, lead board liaison.
Do we want to do this, or do we want to switch to facilities?
Yep, sorry, we're going to move over to facilities because we do have presenters here tonight, and I thank you for waiting 2 hours to get to your presentation. So, Mr. Manzer?
Sure, I'll be as quick as I can, just providing a little context too, because this does need an introduction, is that as you're well aware, the board is well aware, we've been through an extensive facility study process for O-Block Elementary and the middle school, led by the Hayes Design Group. They are online if we have any questions for them. Through this process, they've identified an existing capital projects needs list of approximately $7.9 million for O-Block Elementary and $14 million at the middle school. Additionally, they've analyzed the programming needs of the building alongside of the capital needs, and the total project cost that they've identified for these buildings is $26.6 million for O-Block Elementary and $37.1 million for the middle school, for a total of $36.7 million combined. Obviously, those costs are significant and require thoughtful review and likely some tough choices. Before we discuss specific projects further with Hayes Design Group, we thought it would be important to present you the financing options and related impacts. So today, we have Jamie Doyle. We're very happy to have her back. as our financial advisor. And also, very happy to have Joe Muscatello here as well as our underwriter with Stifel. And there's no, just to give you the insight here on the action points, there's no action tonight. This is information for you to consider and an opportunity for you to provide your feedback. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jamie.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. Hopefully you all have a copy of my presentation either in digital format or hard copy. And again, this is just to help you start to think about, what the costs might look like as you prioritize the level of projects you may want to undertake. So if you look at the inside cover, page 2 of my handout, I always like to start off talking a little bit about market conditions. And this is 3 snapshots of the same index. This is the MMD curve, which stands for Municipal Marketplace Data. And what the top snapshot tells us is we're currently at the blue line. And for the first time in a very long time, we're experiencing an inverted yield curve. So that's important for 2 reasons. First of all, you're finally earning something on your investments, which, investment rates have been next to nothing for the last decade or so. So that's good news on your short-term investments. And then as you look out longer on the yield curve, you can see that long-term fixed borrowing rates are below historic averages. And so, that's good news as well in terms of the rates you can lock in if you were to borrow. The middle snapshot just shows this index going all the way back to 1993, so you can get a more historic perspective. And the bottom chart is just a blow-up of the same index for calendar year 2022 and 2023. So you can see how it's moved around over time. If you look at page 3, this is a lot of bullet points, but we've outlined several different scenarios. Again, they're just scenarios, and we always like to try to provide what I call bookends, the high end of the range and the low end of the range. And, all decisions have pros and cons that go along with them, but we're going to try to walk through 5 options and illustrate some strategies that we could consider depending on what projects you'd like to pursue. So in scenario 1A, we're going to show financing a full project at O Block and Plum Middle Schools in one transaction, meaning borrowing the full amount all at one time. In scenario 1B, the same magnitude of projects, the full amount, only spreading the transactions in a multi-step borrowing. Scenario 2 would also be multi-step financing, but limiting the incremental debt service increase to $1.8 million, and that's just a variable that we're solving for, and you'll see that in a minute. In that scenario, it does preserve a debt drop-off for future projects beginning in 2032, because that's also a consideration, what your debt portfolio looks like at the end of the day in terms of future project needs that you may have. In scenario 3, again, a multi-step plan of finance. This one will involve restructuring some of your existing debt and covering only the capital maintenance minimums at both O Block and the middle school to minimize the budget impact. And then finally, in scenario 4, again, multi-step with restructuring and limiting the impact to $1.8 million. So it's a combination of those strategies, and you'll be able to see the effects. In that scenario 4, now the debt drop-off for future projects doesn't start till 2046, so it's much further out until you would have a drop-off. I would just note that if any part of the project does turn out to be Act 34, which is energy savings or guaranteed energy savings agreements, those portions of the financing are limited to 20 years in term. In that second section, there's a couple different approaches to a new money financing. Most projects are a combination and entail the multiple financing, meaning that you borrow some money in advance of getting your construction bids in so that you have seed money and money for design fees, those types of items. And then the current funding is when you get the construction bids in and know the exact amount of money that you ultimately need to borrow. So we're going to look at some of both of those. The third section, a reimbursement resolution. If you do find that you need to start from cash flow standpoint fronting money for some of those design fees and early expenditures, you can pass a reimbursement resolution, and that just preserves your legal right to reimburse yourself from borrowed proceeds in the future. It doesn't require you to do that, but just preserves your right if you want to. And then section 4 is very important. The IRS doesn't let us go borrow money just because interest rates are below historic averages, unfortunately. You have to have reasonable expectations. Those are the key words, that you can spend 85% of the borrowed money within 3 years. And so that will be dependent on your construction draw schedule and the cash flows needed to finance the project. You have to have reasonable expectations that you can incur within 6 months of settlement a substantial binding obligation to spend at least 5%. And usually that's your architect's contract satisfies that. And then finally, just that you proceed with due diligence on the outlined projects. The last section on this page, where applicable, part of the strategy is to break the financing into $10 million or less pieces where able. Again, your cash flow has to support that in order to meet your construction draws. But to the effect that we can break out some $10 million pieces per calendar year, that gets you a lower bank qualified interest rate and a shorter 5-year call feature, both of which are advantageous to the district. If you look at page 4, you'll see a snapshot of your existing debt portfolio. So if you do nothing new, you'll continue to make the payments on page 4. And the top half of the page is your gross debt service on your various issues, meaning principal and interest. And the bottom half of the page is your local share or the net effect on your budget every year after state reimbursement. And so a couple of things on this page, the highlighted columns in columns 2 and 3, your 2013A and 2013B bonds are coming up on their call date, which near the bottom of the page you can see is September 15th of this year. All that means is it's the district's option and the district's option alone if you want to call those bonds back from the investors. And we're going to show you some options in a minute that would entail calling those bonds back from the investors. The other thing of note on this page is column 24. That's the most important column on here because it shows your annual impact on your budget net after state reimbursement. And as you look down column 24, you can see you're pretty level. I'll call that $7.44 million until we get to the 2032 fiscal year. And then it drops down to $6.94 million. That's going to be really important as we think about how you might want to structure new debt to wrap around that old existing debt.
So that's my question. This is just our existing debt?
Yes.
Correct.
Nothing new.
So another way to look at it here is to, like, if we did nothing, the next opportunity, natural opportunity that we have in our debt schedule starts to happen when we have those drop-offs in our schedule. So
That's entirely.
if we do not want to increase our budget or have any other impacts, that would be like the natural time that you'd have the opportunity to go back to the market and not impact your operating budget.
Explain what you're talking about.
So it's quite simply, like, we're budgeting for $7.4 million in debt service. If you go out and borrow more money, you're going to have to add to that annual debt service. If you don't want to impact your operational budget, the next opportunity you have is when that naturally, that $7.4 million becomes something less. You can borrow additional money and go back up to that $7.4 million, and you'd have an opportunity there to not impact your operational.
Is that what happens there? We paid off that debt and that's why.
It's like it's like we have 2 cars, I paid one off, I can go buy a new car.
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so column 24, let's turn to page 5. Now column 24 shows up in column 3. We're carrying over your existing debt portfolio in column 3. And so this is scenario 1A, and this is the high end of that bookend that I described to you. So this assumes that you do the full projects at both O Block and the middle school. And you can see in that top block that totals $63,725,000. And it assumes that you borrow all the money at once. And again, as you make decisions, we'll customize this more. We had to make a lot of assumptions on timing and whatnot to illustrate this for you. But you can see what happens. If you borrow it all at once, you can see the estimated local effort below in column 4 that would be new and additive to your debt portfolio. And you can see in dollars in column 4 and in mils in column 6, that also means that the full impact of the borrowing takes effect pretty much upfront and basically in one fiscal year. So the end impact is 2.3 mils at the bottom of column 6. And we're gonna compare that to a couple more options and look at ways to minimize that and make that more palatable. So that's the high end of the bookend range. If you turn to page 6.
For context too, that 2.3 mils is about 10.4% increase to your current mills that are in place. So when we talk about Act 1 indexes, those types of things, that's I'll kind of point that out as we go through, is the millage impact and the percentage increase that you're looking at.
So,
That's,
so if we were to do right now, it's gonna take 2.3 out of our current budget in a millage type percentage.
No, we have to raise taxes.
you would have to raise your millage by 2.3 mils,
Yeah.
which would be a 10.4% increase in your mills.
Which we can't even do.
Yeah. And you would not be able to do so under your Act 1 indexes. Part of the point. Yep.
And again, we're not suggesting you do this, we're just trying to illustrate and work down from there. All right, so if you turn to the next page, this is option 1B. It takes those same projects, that same $63,725,000, nothing different about that. It just breaks it down into a 5-step plan. So you can see each of the various colored columns are labeled step 1 through step 5. And so you can also see at the bottom of column 19, it's the same 2.3 mils that we just looked at on the prior page. But if you start at the top of column 19, now it's phased in over several different fiscal years. Again, starting to make this more manageable.
Is this something that you work with the Hayes group, or are these just numbers that you spread out? Like, are these actual projects you can get done with the money in each phase?
This is from your feasibility study from the Hayes
Yeah.
group, and this is again, when I talk in terms of bookends, this is the high end of the range.
And I think there's some strategies that she's putting in place too, is that you see the $10 million offerings to stay within that bank qualified, and then you're only going the one time doing that big borrowing that would be over that bank qualified limit. So when they put these things together, they're trying to come to the best numbers that they possibly can, and this is a sort of a design to get there. The other thing with the millage equivalent too, just like basically spreading that over, is that you'd be in a range that could be doable within Act 1 limits.
Right.
To give you an idea of what it would be is a 1% increase is about 0.22 mils, and to get to 1 mil, you're at about a 4.5% increase. So you can kind of see that those numbers start to become, at least
Manageable.
somewhat manageable, but that's still a huge, that 2.3 mils doesn't change between the two plans. That's still a huge change in your millage rate over a fairly short period of time.
So just when we're saying that.
Number 19 looks like this millage rate increases through 25 to 30. That would pay for these.
Yeah, and that is over and above your operational increases that we have already planned in our 5-year plan, yes.
And Mr. Manzer, and this is based on current tax collections, correct? Like, this doesn't take into account new home constructions that might happen, that sort of thing, which could impact that over time.
Correct, yeah.
But it's saying for those 5 years, raise taxes at a 0.42 millage equivalent in whatever year. I'm going to say year 1, 0.36, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is done not necessarily working with, but as you go through the process of these projects, they take multiple years, right? I mean, we looked at for instance, how many times we had the conversation about the junior high, now the middle school, whatever we want to call it. How many times we had that conversation, how many presentations, and what that's going to cost. At some point, you can't keep moving that down the road. That building needs desperate repairs. And so we're managing the debt to some level where it's not overwhelming on the taxpayers, it's not overwhelming on our budget, but there's things we have to do.
And just to point out the wraparound structure on all of these options, but you can see in each of the steps, the payments start off at a smaller number, and then, as you start to have drop-offs in column 7 in your existing portfolio, we increase on the new debt steps, because by state law, you have to have overall level or declining debt service, and that's what you have in column 18 in this option. So, you know, as those dollars free up in the future on your old debt portfolio, they're pledged to the new debt to help you need
Right.
less new dollars.
And it doesn't mean that we refinance bonds when they come due and all sorts of other things that give us access to capital to keep
Correct.
moving numbers.
This scenario assumes no
None of that.
refinancings or restructurings whatsoever, but we're gonna look at one of those in a minute.
I've been this route a few times.
I can tell. Okay, if we go to the next page, page 7, this is scenario 2, and you'll see in that very top box, this only allows you to do a little less than half the amount of projects, so $29,265,000. Because the additional variable that we solved for is in column 12, and we drew red dashed lines around the boxes, we solved for what does a $1.8 million increase look like over this period of time. How much money does that allow us to borrow? So that's why this is for a lesser amount of borrowing, because we're solving for that set dollar number of increase. What you'll also notice in this option is you still have some drop off in 2032. I'm looking at column 12 when I say this. Some drop off that we preserve in case you want to leave room for whatever the next capital improvement need is down the road. And, you know, for some districts, that's really important because they have lots of capital needs coming up. And for other districts, if they're fixing everything now, they're less worried about a drop off that soon in the future. But you can see for this amount, it's about 1.07 mils. So about a little less than half of the millage as well as half of the projects. So again, working down from that 2.3 mils that we started from.
So, and this range was sort of a cooperative effort, I'd say, is that looking at our existing operational needs and then also looking at the needs of this capital plan, is that this was a reasonable layer that you could layer on top of our current 5-year plan. So it looks like, you know, in our next year is going to be a challenging year, federal funds expiring, lots of operational needs that are there. We've talked about that before. In the years out, it looks that, you know, a reasonable increase that we're trying to get back to 2%, something in that range. If you layered in an additional 2%, that's what you're looking at in this kind of a plan. It would still be a challenging thing. You're still going to be looking at multiple years in a row of a tax increase to be able to deliver on something like this. But it becomes a little bit more in the doable realm. You would certainly have to be committed to delivering on a plan like this over multiple years. But it was a target that we sort of settled on that looked like you could accomplish $30 million-ish worth of projects. Could definitely do something substantial. We can work with Hayes Design to identify further what those projects could be, what that might look like. That's a discussion for another day. But this would give you a substantial project and then also be able to kind of operationally still do what you need to do to support the operations and not get put into a place. I think you have to be very, very careful with these things when you're talking about substantial increases to your debt service, is you do not want to then have to eliminate programs, eliminate positions to be able to pay for the debt service. So it's really important to be able to understand when you actually borrow the money, what is the plan to be able to pay for it so that you're not impacting your current operations.
So if we look at the next page, page 8, this is scenario 3. You'll see that in that top left-hand corner, this allows you to do $21,835,000 worth of projects. And this is a multi-step plan. It involves some restructuring. So you can see in columns 1 and 2, we would not only refund your 2013A and 2013B bonds, they're the ones that are coming up on the call date this fall. And, you know, it can be any date thereafter. It's not like you have to make a decision and do it exactly on that date. But we would restructure those a little bit. And what that means is if you look in column 7, everywhere you see a negative number, it means we're putting less principal back in those years than there originally was. We're stretching it out and we're amortizing more principal in 2032 to 2040, where you see the positive numbers. We're stretching that old 2013 A issue out a little bit and restructuring it. You can see the PV present value cost of that at the very bottom of column 7, about $568,000. But you can also see the trade-off for that is now if you just did the capital maintenance at Plum Middle School and O Block, you can see the total millage equivalent at the bottom of column 16 is now 0.35 mils. So this is the lower end of that bookend that I was describing to you earlier.
Aren't we just kicking the can down the road, and at some point, we're gonna be paying more interest in these buildings that we've remodeled? We're gonna probably need to remodel them again, and then we're gonna be hit with that money again, and just keep like that.
Yes, yes, the slower you amortize, that's exactly what happens. Yes.
Listen, I don't even want to remodel the junior high, I want to build a new building.
But
It's gonna be cheaper.
district, and again, my job is to show you all the options, so don't shoot the messenger. Well, lots of districts consider options like this because it's the only way they can accomplish the critical capital improvements that they need and still, keep all their programs and deal with their other operational increases.
Just to give you a feel for the context, like this would be a 1.6% increase in millage, very doable within 1 year. This is not a multi-year step plan. You'd be able to take care of really all of the capital needs in both buildings by just that one simple step. The challenge is you eliminate your opportunity, that natural opportunity in your debt schedule, and you also address none of the programming needs in either building. So you most likely could have some of these still programming challenges that you're going to come back to. And if you do have to redo those spaces, exactly your point is you would have to potentially redo a space that you've just redone if you want to, 5 years down the road, actually address that programming need. So.
Oh, Mike, do you need a
If
camera?
you ever paid a school loan and just paid interest, never goes away.
But it's certainly a realistic option to be able to address those needs in the buildings quickly.
And that's the pros and cons I was talking about. The pro is it has a lower millage equivalent. The con is you're stretching your debt out further, and that affects the interest as you're recognizing. And then finally, scenario 4 on page 9. So this is solving for a couple of things we already looked at. So this has a $1.8 million increase between the red boxes in column 17, which equates to about 1 mil. And it incorporates the restructurings, not exactly the way we just looked at them, but we were backing into how much could we borrow if we go with the 1.8 million over a period of time and the restructurings. And now you can see you could borrow 41,725,000, which is, about 12,460,000 more than scenario 2. So again, and that one's the one that doesn't have any drop off then until 2046. So, you wouldn't be able to wrap anything else around that for a little bit if you had other additional capital needs. So again, just trying to illustrate some of the scenarios and techniques that we can use once we know more about what you'd like to undertake and what kind of millage strategy you would be comfortable with. And of course, that draw schedule will be critical because that's what determines, breaking this up into steps. We would need that before we can do that realistically.
I think it's interesting, if I'm wrong, option A, you did everything, let's say we're doing everything. Our debt is paid off in 2046. When we go to this one, everything's paid off in 2043. And you're not doing it.
They're accomplishing different things as far as the drop-offs as you're recognizing. They're not meant to be apples to apples. I'm trying to show you a wide variety of what you could think about in terms of millage that ranges from 0.35 to 2.3 and with and without drop-offs along the way.
So I was trying to type in to find something that I clearly can't find. What's the interest rate that we're borrowing?
Well, that would be determined when you borrow.
But
We're
currently.
conservative always in our early estimates.
Sure.
You would be somewhere in the 4% range now.
Okay.
But we always try to be you'd do better than this today if we were really doing it. But
Sure.
I mean, this is a long time horizon. Some of these have borrowings in 2028, which is pretty far away.
Sure. Do we have, well, yeah, I do projects internationally, I get it, like, you're not. My question is, do we have debt service that we can refinance coming up? I know you
Yep.
said September.
Yep, that's the 2 yellow columns on page 4. And you can see the call dates on all of your various issues. There's a line near the bottom of the page that says call date. So you can see what those dates are on all of your issues. And you know, some of those issues you're past the date, but there's no
Right.
economic benefit to refund them for pure savings because you already have pretty low rates on them already. And, you know, they're short, so they don't have bonds in the right places to consider a restructuring.
Okay.
Mr. Manzer, you said we couldn't do some of the over 10 million in a year borrowing, correct?
It just becomes more expensive. So
Okay.
a strategy is to try to stay under the $10 million
Okay.
to be as efficient as possible.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And it's not always possible. It depends on your draw schedule, but, you know, we'll analyze that once we have more information eventually.
Once we get any clue.
That 4% at our current bond rate, we haven't, I know we talked about looking at that again at some point in time. Would we do that before we did this to try to get better interest rates?
Your interest rate is absolutely dependent on your credit rating. Your credit rating gets evaluated every single year. The rating agency does annual surveillance. So even if you don't enter the bond market, they're surveilling you annually and deciding if it stays the same or changes. But yes, to any extent you can improve on your credit rating, absolutely that would help all this look better.
And do any of these lean towards that?
I'm sorry?
Does doing any of these scenarios, aside from maybe the lease borrowing, lean towards making our credit rating look better? Like the restructuring, if we did that, does that help our bond rating, hurt our bond? You know what I
It
mean?
doesn't help it because you're stretching your amortization
Yep.
out further. Things that help your credit rating are your reserve levels. They're very focused right now on enrollment, which is not always within your control.
Yep.
And they're very focused on your cyber charter costs and what you're proactively doing to bring those children back into the district
Okay.
and manage those costs.
So less about.
I would say those are the top 3 things they're looking at these days.
Less about the overall, I mean, yes, to your point, restructuring lengthens those loans, but less about the overall amount that we're borrowing. More so how our books are in order.
I mean, certainly all that factors in. They look at everything and they look at, you know, years of audits, they look at budgets, they look at your policies. They will Google the district and ask questions about things that we didn't even tell them about.
All of those things are just generally assessing your ability to repay the debt. And if you're able to demonstrate the ability to be able to repay the debt and a good financial plan that we've already discussed, goes a long way. They ask for our 5-year plans, and especially too, if this is integrated into a 5-year plan and we're demonstrating that we're moving in that direction, that will really show the credit rating agencies that this is not something that we haven't planned for. It's not something that we're not going to be able to repay. So I think it's really important that as we move forward through this, we'll be discussing our operational 5-year plan, but then I can put these demonstrations as layers onto that, and we can say, this is what it looks like if we do this project, this is what it looks like if we do this level of a project. And then we can start making some decisions and doing that annual budget process, we can start layering some of this in. And if you're demonstrating the ability to particularly save and set money aside for these types of things, that goes a long ways. And so this is great context to have well before a decision needs to be made. It's also when we go to December budget workshop time, I'll be pulling these things back up and we can be talking about them. In the meantime, you know, you can give me your feedback on what plans you like, what plans you don't like, and we'll be trying to formulate, you know, a recommendation moving forward as well on this.
So if we have a plan, an act on plan, this should not negatively impact our bond rating?
Not as long as you're really following through on the plan and putting everything in place and demonstrating that you are willing to make the hard decisions.
It really depends too. Like we've talked before, is we do have a high level of debt service here, and it's something that they're monitoring. And when you go borrow more money, it's going to increase your level of debt service, and that's going to be a negative thing, you know. So, but there's mitigating factors to that.
I thought I was always scared into borrowing money here. Didn't think we could borrow any more money. I guess somebody's always willing to give us money.
You have legal borrowing limits, but
Technicalities.
Well, and the issue is that this notion of, well, the board will change, or the board will change. The board could change every 2 years. You don't get to decide how everything works every 2 years. That's not how life works. When you're in a school district, you got to at some point have continuity in what's going on. You can't sit there and go, well, there's a new board coming in November, so we have to wait, or next November, another. If we do this, understand, we're doing this for the betterment of our kids and the safety and security of our buildings, and making sure they have proper educational space. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I hate the fact that my son's going into the middle school knowing that it needs all that stuff, and it's gonna be happening while he's there. But am I grateful that it's gonna be happening? Yeah. I mean, do I really wish we were building a new middle school? 100%. But with all of that said, we need to have a plan, and we need to stick with that plan. I don't care who wins what election. You're making a commitment to students, and you have to stick with the plan.
Been lots of talks about plans today.
Jamie, we really thank you for coming in person as well. It's great to have the interaction and have this session. Thanks for your patience as well. Joe, do you have anything for us tonight? Great history with the district too. We really appreciate you coming.
I just appreciate hopefully being hired again in this district since 2005. And now I have the pleasure of working with Jamie as your financial advisor. So she basically advises the school district, and we'll be underwriting the bonds as we usually did in the past. So.
We'd like to develop a great team here, and I really appreciate the input and efforts even too, just to do this planning, so really appreciate it.
And for sticking around till 9:30.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So Joe, you've been through worse.
I just want to take a minute to follow up, Ms. Stepnick, in regards to your comment. The board does not need to make a decision this evening, and part of Mr. Manzer's, what he's been doing on the back end, we've been meeting with these groups for months in regards to having conversations and getting us to a place where we feel comfortable sharing the information with the community. But this is just one piece of information. And I just want to put it in the perspective. You had an opportunity to look at the Hayes Design Group in the options that are presented to this board. Tonight you had an opportunity to see the financial options. But I don't want this board to lose sight of a conversation that occurred maybe about a year and a half ago. This board charged the administration with looking at ways to implement full-day kindergarten. And in order to have a complete picture of that, I still believe there's a piece of information that is missing, and that is to commission another demographic study through Davis.
Yes.
We need to know the capacity of our buildings. We need to understand, our current configuration, any options that it may lead to, in order for this board to have the complete picture to make a decision. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that there isn't any decision that you need to make tonight. But I do believe that Davis demographic is a key piece to the board having the complete picture.
I'd like to add to that, because we do those every 2 years now.
We are in cycle to commission another study going to the 23-24 school year.
So one of the things that we assessed was the 2 buildings. What I would like to do is assess all of them, not necessarily on capital improvements, but how we're configured, to see if we are configured in the best, most economical way for something like a full-day kindergarten.
And we can certainly request that, yes.
Is there another configuration that will allow that? It's like a K-2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
My concern is that, and you see the cost that is associated with the plans at O Block Elementary in the middle school. But if we're talking about the direction the administration team has been given, we were asked to look at what would it take to implement full-day kindergarten. Currently, going into the 23-24 school year, there will be one empty classroom at Pivot. They were at capacity last year. So I'm kind of curious. I'm interested in looking at those trends because Pivot used to be at 6 sections, and slowly over the years they have risen to 7. This is the first year we're going to 6 again. What we're finding with the development is that more students are moving into O Block Elementary, which is now at capacity. So I don't want to lose sight of that, and I wanted to follow up on your comment that there's still more work to do.
Is there a configuration study that we can do, though?
We can ask them to look at that.
Is that Hayes, or is that another?
Davis Demographics would be able to give us a recommendation.
Would they be able to recommend best configuration? They can recommend, like, you go here, but
sure,
is there like an educational recommendation that they can make on how we're configured if we wanted to bring full-day kindergarten back, most economically feasible to the taxpayer?
I believe that's part of the equation. Okay.
The only thing I would add to that and ask if we're going to do that, and I don't disagree with getting that information for certain, but what was the cost to just do this new configuration that we have? That we have 5 and 6 building, 7 and 8, it's a middle school model. I mean, there's a cost affiliated with changing those models consistently.
I understand.
And so I would just think we'd be mindful of what that is, because if we're a space issue, I mean, look, we all know that this building has more space than we need, right? But, and I'm not saying we're doing this, but that would mean 8th grade has to come here, or there's got to be a kindergarten center here, or something if we only wanted to use our current buildings and do no other construction. So, you know, neither one are great ideas, right? But what does that look like? And if there's another new plan coming in,
yeah,
that's the center, whatever, O Block sending zone, right? That's another issue to have to overcome. So there might just be simply construction that needs to go on.
My concern is that construction alone would not address what we've been charged with, is looking at full-day kindergarten.
Correct.
Because we are not able to offer it at Pivot under the current configuration and alignment of the district. What I heard loud and clear when I came into the district 5 years ago is that my child was at Old Holiday Park, the old Regency, the buildings were reconfigured, and I heard that a lot from parents at every level. Usually I was getting used to the conversation beginning with how many times their child changed schools. We've been consistent in our approach, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I believe this board needs to be thoughtful in regards to next steps forward. I would not want to make a change that is short-term. If we're going to make a recommendation, I want this board to have all the information so that you can make so that we can move forward with something that would be built to last, and not in 3 years having a conversation about kindergarten again. So there's a lot of ripples to what we're talking about here, and Mr. Manzer and the team that he's been working with have done a tremendous job of laying out the financial impact to this community. And as I said, that's just one piece of it. Okay.
Yeah, and then kindergarten would be on top of this financial impact, along with our normal day-to-day.
That's not necessarily true.
It may minimize the impact.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. It may minimize the impact long-term. And that's why we need that information.
And the Hayes study took into consideration construction at O Block to allow for full-day kindergarten space as well. So a reconfiguration, even though nobody wants to say that word out loud, if it worked, it could save those construction costs.
I think if you reconfigured, you could reconfigure a way where everybody's going to school together. You don't have 2 elementary schools. You have an early elementary school and whatever the hell you want to call the next elementary school. So it's not really like I'm splitting my friends up. Now I'm bringing everybody together. That's kind of something that I would be more interested in.
My drive would be, and I've lived through redistricting previously in other districts 4 times, and I know what that means to the community. Any recommendations along those lines would be the minimum impact that we can have on students. So maybe students, instead of transitioning in 4th grade, they're transitioning in 3rd grade. So maybe we can take a look at that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. And and now we don't have 2 elementary schools where you know, this kid goes here, this family goes here, and then you have, everybody gets the same opportunities because they're all going through the school together.
You also have to take into account transportation, the capacity of cafeterias. As I said, there's a lot of ripples, and that's what this administration team will be charged with, bringing back recommendations, but we need the data first.
Exactly, like that.
Mr. Devine, would now be a good time to vote to extend the meeting?
We don't need to just yet.
Okay.
We've about half an hour still.
We
Okay.
started it.
We started a quarter after.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
All right, moving on. So, Ms. Charterwitz, if you want to,
Thank you, guys.
yes, oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Please go home.
Are we skipping out of facilities now?
We'll finish,
No, we're gonna do the rest of the budget.
we'll finish budget and finance, then we'll go back in order.
But yes, Adam, to your point, I think you said facilities by accident?
It's budget and finance, yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to go through letter B first, then I'll make the recommendation to approve, then we'll just go down from there.
Okay. So for the budgetary items listed below, recommend to approve.
So I recommend approval to accept and resolve budgetary items 1 to 3 as listed.
So
Motion.
moved.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Ms. Macro, I'm abstaining from my father's paycheck. Anything regarding that? Motion passes. Letter C, anything for discussion here? All right, recommend approval to accept and resolve year-end and new year business office functions 1 and 2 as listed.
So moved.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. And letter D, anything to discuss here? Recommend approval to accept and resolve booster group affirmation resolutions 1 and 2 as listed.
So moved.
Motion is second, all in favor? All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Ms. Charter, was anything to report tonight?
I do not have a report for this evening. I want to thank Jamie and her team for coming here and presenting us with the presentation, but that is all I have for this evening.
Thank you. Student achievement and activities, Dr. Dr. Anderson, anything to discuss in letter A?
I don't think if anybody has anything. Anybody have any questions or concerns with the grants and donations?
No, exciting. Dr. Anderson?
Yeah.
I had this conversation with Dr. Highland, and I'm thinking in all the craziness, we missed it. The book vending machine from the PTO. We actually need to vote on that acceptance. We accepted the books. But we need to vote on accepting the book vending machine. My son liked to point out that it would be better if it had food.
Sure.
But I think we have to put that on at some point
Yeah,
for
okay.
formality, but I just wanted, I looked at it and it reminded me to say something, so.
You have that, Dr. Walsh? Okay.
All right, recommend approval to accept and resolve grants and donations items 1 through 3 as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
Any questions on letter B on the Title III Consortium, the MOU for 23-24? Ms. Sedlak, anything notable?
Title III.
All right.
The PSL, I'm sorry.
All right, recommend approval to accept and resolve the 2023-2024 AIU Title III Consortium MOU.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
Letter C are just annual renewals of student service agreements we have with these 3 organizations. Any questions or concerns? And Ms. Sedlak, anything notable to add?
No.
Okay.
We have a motion, recommend approval to accept and resolve the annual student services agreement renewals 1 to 3 as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
And letter D is the annual renewal with the Waterfront Learning Organization with the IU. Any questions or concerns? And Ms. Sedlak, anything to add?
Is that what our PDLA program is built off of, this one?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
That's all I got.
All right, we're good.
Recommend approval to accept and resolve the Waterfront Learning Agreement as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
Letter E are the 23-24 dual enrollment agreements with these 4 universities.
Is this a full list, or is this just what's up for renewal right now?
PDE has required the board to approve these agreements moving forward. That was part of our future ready comprehensive plan. If there are additional ones, we will add those to the agenda.
Okay.
And you'll note, if you guys had the opportunity to look through them, they're a little bit different for each of them. And so it is work on the high school administration to make sure to have all of this in order and to take care of it correctly. And they do a great job with that. And I know Dr. Hübner wants to continue to improve that. So
Is Penn State just more challenging to get in the dual enrollment program?
Nobody would sign up.
We'll work on it, Adam. We'll work on it.
Dr. Walsh, if
We gotta
I
get that.
can go back to the conversations we've had about dual enrollment, just really quickly, I know it's been a long night, I'm sorry, but actually, I mean, we could spend a little time talking about education.
Right.
All that said, I know that there's been conversations in outside groups that have been looking to figure out how could they supplement some of the students that maybe would like to do this dual enrollment. While we know it's per credit hours, not very much, right? But
Financially,
for
yeah.
some families, it's a lot, and for some, then maybe they just like to apply for a scholarship. And can we get back to that at some point, getting some of those numbers back to us, so we know this is the average cost, right, per year that our kids pay for these programs? And they're phenomenal, but that's what the average cost is.
We started to pull the numbers last year, and I think I presented at the podium.
We were gonna come back to it, because it was part of the.
It needs to be part of the program of study. The one thing we did not want to do is make a recommendation that would last for a year and then fund.
100%.
And so we were looking for a long-term solution. That will be part of the program of studies moving forward.
Okay, perfect.
But I will say, we have some amazing success stories that have used this program. It would be nice if they would to write something up to share with parents that are coming into the high school, so they can understand exactly how powerful these programs are and how much money it can save them down the road.
That's some of the work that our school counselors will be doing is just trying to bring all of that full circle. So we got to bring it full circle so we communicate it better, so that families understand it better, so that they can participate in it and students can get it, which is even, I would say, a challenge at getting that data a little bit, because it's really the impetus is on the parent to sign up for the course. And yes, you're working a little bit with that teacher, that's, the teacher of record, but you're really doing it with the institution. And so it's coming full circle on
We
that.
have kids that are juniors out of high school and college.
Yeah, because they're doing these classes.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to make sure, knowing that I believe that there would be a more long-term than a one-year solution of what I'm thinking, and I'm not going to speak out of school about it, but with that said, it would be nice to know those numbers, because there's other ways of providing scholarship funds to kids than just here's your $500 or $1,000. There's other ways of continuing some of that as well.
Yep.
All right, recommend approval to accept and resolve the dual enrollment agreements 1 to 4 as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
Letter F again, annual services agreements, anything, go ahead.
This is new agreement for physical therapy and occupational therapy for our students. We shopped around and feel like this is better suited for our district.
Go ahead.
Recommend approval to accept and resolve the West Arm Services Agreement as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Dr. Anderson, anything to report tonight?
No, this has been a long meeting.
Thank you so
I'm good,
much.
I'm good.
All right, Safe and Supportive Schools, Mr. Adams, Lead Board Liaison. Anything under letter A?
Yes, we had the insurance contracts discussion there.
There's your culprit, Angela.
You're good.
I've been muted the whole time, but.
Take it off.
There's your culprit.
Feeling everything.
I was wondering what you were doing.
Can you
Test.
hear the high?
All right. Maybe that's the problem. I was gonna hand it over, Mr. Manager, do you have anything to add on the?
Just the annual renewal of our insurance contracts, nothing to report.
All right.
All right, recommend approval to accept and resolve insurance contracts as listed.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Anything to report
I have a
tonight?
very quick report. A tabletop exercise was conducted at the high school on June 1st. The training was to test the district's new reunification procedures. The event was attended by representatives from the Plum Police Department, each of the borough's fire departments, EMS, district admin, and the Plum School Police as well. Bob Gerlach of Allegheny County Emergency Services facilitated the exercise, and it's very good practice to do these things proactively and just be ready for anything. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Walsh.
Just quickly, I'd like to just take a moment and thank Chief Conley from the Plum Borough Police, their participation, Brian Maloney, the Director of Plum EMS, and the fire chiefs from the local fire departments. We learned a lot, and it was the tabletop activity allowed us all to collaborate, and it was something that I left feeling better about where we're at. And it's nice that we have the borough and the district sitting around the table discussing how we can keep our kids safe. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the borough representatives.
Anything else?
No further.
Thank you. Anybody want to go through budget and finance again? Okay. Facilities and operations, Mr. Hill, Lead Board Liaison. Anything to discuss with letter A?
The exclusive competitive beverage contract, PepsiCo. Any discussion?
No, I think it's important to know too that Pepsi was the final donation for our new signs.
Yes.
And I finally can get the coolers fixed.
Recommend approval to accept and resolve the PepsiCo beverage contract as listed. Oh, I'll make that motion. Sorry.
Try it again. Recommend approval to accept and resolve the PepsiCo beverage contract as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Letter B.
No increase to 23-24 breakfast and lunch prices as follows. I could read them if you like, or we can discuss it.
Any discussion? Recommend approval to accept and resolve breakfast and lunch prices as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
Letter C, bid awards for repairs to the Pivot Elementary Stormwater Detention Basin. Any discussions there? Take it away.
Just a good bid result. We only had 2 bidders, but favorable pricing from what we expected. So we're pleased with that, and we'll get that project started right away.
I noticed the borough is doing some stormwater repair retention. Is that something that I think we're probably too far down the road?
Yeah, there's an evaluation district-wide of all the retention ponds, so I'm sure there's others that are also
Yeah, the
doing
district.
work.
Go ahead.
Take it away.
All right, recommend approval to accept and resolve Pivot Elementary Stormwater Detention Basin bid as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Letter E.
We are going to purchase 3 school buses. This is part of our thing that we do annually to try to maintain our fleet, so we don't have old buses. Any discussion? Nope. Part of the plan. A lot of planning
My
tonight.
plan, under my
Lots of
own
plans.
numbers, my own thing, okay?
Plans on plans.
Recommend approval to accept and resolve school bus bids as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
Now we get to provide these new buses for the Plum Borough Summerfest event, June 23rd to the 24th. We're going to shuttle community members between the events at Larry Mills and off-site parking provided by Amplified Church. Don't kill the grass. Kickoff Classic is in August and the grass is dead.
I just want to, before we vote on this, as the lead board liaison for intergovernmental, the borough comes to us to ask us for things like this, and I think it's great that we are able to do this for them at no cost. I don't know why we would vote no for this, so I don't expect any no votes, but I just think it's a great thing that when we can work with the borough.
It is. It's a great community event and there's no parking there, so this definitely provides a benefit.
All right, recommend approval to accept and resolve the use of district buses to support Plum Borough Summerfest as listed.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
Letter F, the agreement for Plum Borough School District to be the approved provider of transportation through the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. And there's really something that we just have to do. Any discussion on it?
No.
All right.
All right, recommend approval to accept and resolve the agreement with OVR as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Anything to report tonight?
No.
Thank you. Forbes Road CTC, Mr. Hill, Lead Board Liaison, letter A.
2324 Forbes Road CTC revenue anticipation note, just so we can give them money till the school district give them, so they kind of borrow some money. Any discussion?
Recommend approval to accept and resolve the Forbes Road CTC RAN as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Anything to report tonight?
Just that next year, all the students are going to have better air. They're putting in new air handlers all throughout the school. They used grant funding to get it done. So should be a little bit more comfortable there.
All right, intergovernmental, myself as Lead Board Liaison, just one quick mention and we'll move on. I don't have the calendar in front of me. I don't think we have a board meeting before the school year starts, correct? Listed right now. I think we have one in August.
August 15th.
August 15th. Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
right before it's
It's on the agenda.
Okay. So that the Saturday before is the back to school movie night. That's still on the calendar, I believe. So just get it on your calendars. I think we had 40 or 50 kids show up last year. It was a good event. Ms. Macro did a lot for that event. It was wonderful, and that's something that the borough is also helping us with. So appreciate their help with that. Legislative, Ms. Stepnick, Lead Board Liaison, anything to report tonight?
If you don't mind, could I just mix my two things? I have very little to say.
I didn't hear
Can
what
I
you
mix
said.
my two,
Oh, yeah,
legislative
go.
and community engagement?
Yep.
PTO is getting ready to get started with organizing the concession stand and getting ourselves going forward. So Mr. Manzer, I'll be in touch for my new hot dog rollers. And we'll be, again, looking for volunteers and I'll help in the concession stand. So look for those emails, parents. And also legislative, it's not really legislative because we all get it in our PSBA updates. Out of pure curiosity, quite frankly, I'm going to Harrisburg next Tuesday. I want to hear about the electric vehicles and some of the buses and the programs that are out there because there is this movement to eventually go all electric. And I'm just curious as to how they think they're going to implement that in school districts. It's more my inquisitiveness, I guess, to be there. So that's why I'm going. If there's something good to report back, I certainly will. And also, it's budget time. But this is the height of their negotiating in Harrisburg. So unfortunately, there's not much to report on with that because what I can give you today, it will probably be different tomorrow.
Thank you. Policy, Mr. Caligiuri, Lead Board Liaison, letter A.
Yeah, we just we have to pass the adjustments to policy 804, which are the start and end times of the teachers' days and the students' days at the schools. I don't know if in the audience, can you see those red? I don't know if there's an attachment for it, but, so basically.
Can we just open it up so they can see it?
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've been talking about this for a while, but it's really spurred out of the new contract with the teachers. And it actually opens up extra 10 minutes in the day for every kid to have time to spend with one homeroom teacher. And so they always have someone to check in with now. Sometimes homeroom was not there or was very inconsistent. So this is the new start time. So elementary school teachers will start at 8 and go to 3:55. So it's 10 minutes earlier. Elementary school students, 8:55 to 3:30.
Can I just ask, we're losing 15 minutes of instructional time?
The student times at the elementary have remained the same. It was just a slight tweak at the high school.
It's not though on here. It's saying grades K to 4 was 8:40 to 3:30, and this says.
That's very correct on the policy. Those had not been updated in the policy, and so those were not accurate as to.
The
what
cross
actual
out, what
times
the
were.
strike through.
The strike-throughs were not the actual times that were being utilized. That policy had not been updated in a long time.
Okay, so, and that's the same for the intermediate?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is correct some and adjust some.
Okay, sorry, yep.
This is only instructional time, not the arrival time. The arrival time for students, they open the doors 15 minutes earlier, and that's in the handbook. These are the instructional times that we are required to report to the state.
This is the building start time and so.
And Mr. Caligiuri, this just, the homeroom teacher at the high school, that's the same teacher they'll have all 4 years, correct?
I believe that's the.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
To the best of their ability.
Okay.
So people can read through it, so these are the adjustments to the instructional time, so we have to update it.
Everyone's so tired.
I thought you were adding 804 school days.
Right, and I know we've explained it to community before, but when you go back to the timing of the school days and why it's important, and Mr. Caligiuri's readers keep falling off my face, but I'm trying to read two things at once. The purpose of that in the high school in particular is because no one gets to really know a student on an annual basis like they do in the other schools. And so at this point would be, you have one homeroom teacher that would say, okay, you know, Mr. Adams, for example, he's been off for a little while, right? And okay, let's go back and see what's happening. And because maybe Devin just moves from room to room every day and no one notices. So the idea of having a homeroom that's your consistent homeroom is that you have more of a connection with one individual teacher. And I think I came back from the conference with that information. I know the districts are already starting to do it, and it was a good thing to implement.
And I think we're going to do something a little bit different in graduation now.
Yes.
That's a conversation that we're currently working on.
Yeah, don't share stuff ahead of time. It's not the plan yet.
That's not the plan.
Get with the plan.
Yet.
New plan.
We need to work with the Teachers Association, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recommend approval to accept and resolve the policy 804 revisions as listed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstained? Motion passes. Equity and inclusion, Ms. Wetmore. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Caligiuri, anything to report? No. Thank you. Equity and inclusion, Ms. Wetmore, Lead Board Liaison, anything to report tonight?
I just want to let you guys know as a board that the AIU is meeting next week for their strategic planning. So if there's anything you think we're missing, let me know and I can take it back to them.
Thank you. Before we move into citizens' comments, we are coming up on 3 hours, so I'll just recommend a motion now to extend the time.
I'll second that motion.
You have a motion in a second. Any
Do we have a, wait?
Yes.
So I recommended the
you made a
motion.
motion.
No, I recommended it, so we need to make the motion.
I'll make the motion, you second it.
Deal.
We motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes. Now I'd like to open the floor to citizens' comments on non-agenda items.
What now, Bo Cherry?
Same address. The homeroom thing, Haley was just saying, is this a new thing? Because she said like for this upcoming year. Okay, because she's like, I've had a different one every year.
No, we're gradually working that.
There you go. There's your answer then. Okay, then to follow up, Mr. Devine, you answered about the AD. What is the going rate for an athletic director, since you said it's underneath? Because is the NA athletic director approaching 40 years from what I understand? And if the going rate's 125,000 for an AD, what's going to keep this guy from bouncing in a year or two if he can make up that 10K difference? If there is that much of a difference, that's going to keep him from leaving. Like you need to make that more than, it needs to hurt to want to leave here. I understand he's coming here, that's a big step, but 10K, I mean, he's going to leave, if he leaves for 125, if that's what the going rate is, you got to make that hurt. That's not going to be enough. Dr. Walsh, I'm sorry, but I don't know if your salary goes up with this, with your interim status, since everybody else's was posted. Okay, so whenever we do, I hope we can learn. Whenever we hire the new superintendent, whether you appoint or whatever, I hope we can learn from the $40,000 pay increase after 2.5 years. And maybe let's not do that, or if we do it, that we make it painful as well, that if you're gonna bounce before that contract, it's not just you lose your vacation days. It needs to hurt, because all that does is hurts the kids in this district, and it hurts the continuity of your teachers and the turnover and everything else. So when we look at these overall numbers, $10,000 is a drop in the bucket. Losing 15 vacation days is a drop in the bucket. But we need to learn from the $40,000 pay raise, because that was a mistake, because it did nothing but cost us money, set the tone for this district, and he left before the contract was up. So let's learn from mistakes. Good luck, Dr. Bosch.
Hi, my name is Jackie Neely, 9224 Salzburg Road. I am a new Plum resident within the past 2 years. I have young children who attend the Plum Borough School District in years to come. My family and I have finally found our forever home, and we are looking forward to getting involved in the community and creating our future here. So I was recently presented with a very unique opportunity to host an Italian exchange student for the upcoming school year. My family and I have taken this into great consideration. We've completed all the requirements to become a host family, including completing a lengthy application, interviews, reference checks, clearances, and by completing a guest room renovation. We love our city and this borough. We feel that we could offer an exceptional cultural experience. In becoming a host family, we hope to become more involved in the community and school system alongside our host student. As someone who works in and has a vested interest in public education, I'm looking forward to building a solid foundation and support system here. Unfortunately, the school district has turned down our coordinator's request to allow our student to enroll. The reason was restructuring, and when our coordinator asked if she may appeal to the superintendent, she was given a hard no. So we were disappointed, to say the least. This is our first interaction with the school district, and this is why I'm standing before you tonight. Throughout this whole process, we were kind of told that this was the easy part for them, and that most districts rarely decline, and that we really wouldn't have to, everything was kind of done on our end, so it was a little surprising. Our host student's name is Aurora. She is an exemplary student. She has exceptional grades, passion for learning. She has the most kind heart, and she has showed that completing this experience would be her dream come true. So the coordinating organization is CIEE, Council on International Educational Exchange, nonprofit, non-governmental organization, the country's oldest and largest nonprofit study abroad and intercultural exchange organization. The students go through a vetting process. They have to have, a certain GPA, 2.5. Aurora's as well above that. They have to pass English proficiency exams. She has passed. They make sure that students will be successful in their school district. Aurora has shared that her friends make school a beautiful place, and she can't wait to immerse herself in a new life on the other side of the world. They also are required to give back to their community through providing service hour opportunities. Hosting her would not only offer an educational opportunity for her, but also a profound opportunity for Plum High School and beyond. I can't really explain why I feel so compelled to host this student at this point in my life. I have 3 very young children, but I do feel blessed to own a home here. I have a room to spare. We have 3 meals on the table each and every day and a lot of love to share. I think this opportunity could be life-changing, and I just cannot continue without at least questioning and pleading my case. So as an institution of education and so much more, I think this experience would be a tremendous circumstance, have a positive effect on the school. So rather than looking at it as an inconvenience or one of not knowing the impact due to potentially being the first in a district, I think it's a rare opportunity that would benefit us all. I know it's easier to just say no sometimes than to look into it or ask a question. You would not be required to do anything aside from just approve, say yes. This organization takes care of all the details. Wouldn't be anything beyond a typical new enrollment on behalf of the district. So imagine how you, your family, or the other students and teachers within the district, and of course Aurora, would feel if given this meaningful opportunity. If you were to do so, I believe we would come to a mutual understanding with our request. I implore you to act with a passionate and excited response. Thank you for listening.
Ma'am, I had an exchange student live with me when I was in high school. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. So I hope whoever told that no gets that straightened by 8 o'clock tomorrow, because I can't wait for this to hit the airwaves tomorrow and people will find out that Plum turned down an exchange student. That'll go over well. I swear I came up here to talk positive. I swear to God I did. This is what I'm talking about when we think things that people need to know. The dual enrollment, I will second. Somebody asked about how much does it cost. Somewhere between $200 and $350 a class. It is one of the greatest things that Plum has to offer. My oldest daughter is going to graduate from college in 3 years because of the credit she carried in, so that she can get into her master's by her 4th year. My youngest daughter is going to graduate with enough credits that she'll be able to double major and still graduate in 4 years unless something haywire goes on, all due to dual enrollment. So I'm not, however you want to do money or whatever, I'm not asking for that. My family can cover that cost. But it is truly one of the best things that Plum has to offer. I also want to give kudos to the 10 minutes that will be spent every day to make sure teachers are connecting. As an educator myself, when I found out that was going to be in the contract, I thought, what a brilliant idea, because now more than ever, kids need that. I see it in my classroom every day. I'm often more a counselor and a caretaker than a teacher many days, and I think that is just a wonderful step forward for the district. And regardless of what I had to say to all of you, I would like to echo what Michelle Stepnick said. In Mr. Metzger, I believe your name is, sir? He outlined you're going to have some tough decisions moving forward financially. You can't go to school in a school that's falling apart. Don't get me wrong, I didn't get excited when you started talking about those millage increases, but I understand some of that's going to be necessary. But again, I stated earlier, I don't care which side of the aisle you sit on when it comes to gun control or any other stupid issue. What I do care about here, when I come here, is the benefit of what's going to be best for the students that come through this. All in all, while I've been very irritated at many things at this district, my daughters are going to leave here, fingers crossed, in another year, having had an excellent education and preparing themselves for their future. I would plead you, whether you're on this board for 4 more months, 5 more months, or you're on it for another 5 or 8 years, please come together. Please. Okay? It is. I haven't been to a board meeting in a bit. Okay? And I'm going to be honest with you, as sure as I'm standing here, I think every single one of you is guilty of it at some point in time. So please, if you don't care about anything else, everybody else who is up here, who's the AD, who's the superintendent, it could be Peter Pan in both positions for all I care if you don't care about the kids. And make it right for the kids. Forget this petty crap. And some people have said that you're not adults. I don't want to go that far, But it's evident to me, like it's disappointing. I saw better behavior and more congenial behavior at the meeting at what was then O Block Junior High when Glass Bowl was getting fried than I've seen congeniality here. And that's truly how I feel. And I think I'll vote for, some of you I voted for, some of you I wouldn't vote for again, but I'm one person. But there's how many kids in this district? Who cares? I don't care if you like each other. Just do it for the kids. Because I heard that lady talk and I wanted to cry. She's got 3 kids in the district who are going to come to this district, and you turn her down for an exchange student who's one of the greatest experiences people can have. I right away thought, man, I hope my daughter meets this girl. Immediately. That's what I want. Thank you for your time. You're not paid a dime for this. You're not paid a dime to listen to anything I or anybody else says. But you are asked to do something for the benefit of the children of this district.
30.
Okay? And I don't take for granted that. I do not take for granted that you all give a lot of time to benefit the children of this district. All I ask is follow what Michelle suggested and come together for the next 4 months, for the next 4 years, because this guy's going to get grilled a lot over these things that are going to go forward, and I don't envy you either, sir. Okay? But if you don't come together, he's going to beat another district too. Thank you.
Any other comments at this time? Mr.
Upcoming public meetings, July 2023 board meeting recess. If a July meeting is needed, it will occur as follows. Board discussion and action meeting on Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 at 7 o'clock. And we have a board discussion action meeting on Tuesday, August 15th, 2023 at 7 o'clock here in the library. This time I'd like to call the meeting adjourned. Do I have a motion and a second?
I'd like to make a motion for 20 more minutes.
No.
I motion the adjournment.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Did we get a 1 and a 2?
I made the motion, Adam seconded.
Sorry.
I did.